Hello and welcome to RPA UiPath Full Course by MindMajix. In today's business world, companies are under constant pressure to save time, reduce tasks, and improve efficiency. That's where robotic process automation comes in. RPA allows businesses to automate repetitive rule-based tasks from data entry to invoice processing, freeing up employees to focus on more strategic work. Among all the RPA platforms, UiPath is the global leader, known for its user-friendly interface, drag and drop workflow design, and strong integration capabilities. In this full course, we will cover everything step by step, starting with the basics of RPA and UiPath Studio, then moving towards the selectors, variables, data manipulation, advanced workflows, and more. In India, UiPath RPA developers and consultants earn salaries ranging from 5 to 15 lakh rupees per annum. Skilled RPA professionals are in high demand across industries. By the end of this course, you will have the knowledge and practical skills to design, build, and deploy automation solutions with UiPath. And if you want to learn UiPath course with certification, then check out our course where we will cover latest industry curriculum, hands-on projects, labs, mock interviews, and more. Before moving ahead, I want you guys to like, share, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss any tutorials and courses from us. Now let's get started with our course.
So, what are the various UiPath certifications available in the market? So that is one very big question that everyone has whenever they do any course. So we will have two certificates out there in the market. First one is going to be RPA Associate. Second one is going to be Advanced RPA Developer. So both of them are given by UiPath itself. It is a Pearson exam that you will have to take. It is not something that we will be able to help you with. We can guide you on the course and contents, but you will have to take the exams. So RPA Associate is for beginners, like with very minimal amount of experience. Those who are new to UiPath, who have done some basic understanding of UiPath, they can take up the RPA Associate certifications. But for people who have like 1 or 2 years of experience, they can and have worked on a lot of projects, they can go ahead with RPA Advanced training. Both the trainings are at for every attempt that you take, there will be a cost involved. RPA Associate is going to be like $150 and advance is going to be $300. So at the end of this course, you will be getting a certificate from MindMajix which says that you have successfully completed this training program on UiPath with your certificate ID, which can be verified, and this can also help you in saying that you are UiPath certificate. So we'll get started with today's agenda. So we'll have a look at what is RPA, what are the benefits of RPA, what are the major RPA tools, then we'll go to introduction to UiPath, a bit about UiPath installation, and what are the real-time projects that are part of this. So we'll get started. Okay, so RPA is nothing but it stands for robotic process automation. Okay, the first thing that comes into people's mind when they hear the word robotic process automation is something that you are going to build hardware robot. That is not going to be the case. What we are going to do is we are going to build software robot. Software robot is nothing but we are just going to write some programs or write some scripts that is going to do the automation on the computer instead of the human. So that is what pretty much RPA is about. It has got nothing to do with hardware robot. First misconception that people have is regarding this. So I just wanted to make that clear. So what can RPA robot? RPA robots can capture data. They can run applications. So trigger response and take decision based on predefined rules and communicate with other systems. So for example, you have multiple systems which you are doing a daily work. It could be an Excel, could be a web system. It could be a Windows application. So on all these things, there is a set of actions that you do on a daily basis. For example, when you receive a Excel file, you may like delete the columns in that file, or you may copy some data from that file. When you get an email in your inbox, you may mark that as read. You may forward it to some other person. So all of these are going to be like your daily tasks, which already have a predefined rule. For example, if your mail comes from a manager, mark as unread. Or if your mail comes from some other customer, you forward it to the sales team. Something like that. So you have some predefined rules there. So wherever you have predefined rules and you can like tell the robot that this is what you have to do in each of the situation, you can go with RPA. So where RPA won't work out is nothing but where there are no rules involved. You yourself will not know what action should I take. For example, a new scenario comes up. Okay. You get a new request. So you don't know what to do that. You have to go ask your friends, or you have to go ask your managers on what is that I have to do that. So these scenarios cannot be coded in RPA. So only those scenarios which have regular rule-based functionality, only those can be done using RPA. That is the first thing that you will have to remember. Then why RPA? So why is everyone coming into RPA? So why are people pushing for RPA? So first thing is nothing but each and every organization is now moving towards automation. COVID-19 as well, people have found that there is a need that people do not need to come to office and they need robots to do the works. So that is going to be the major digital transformation of every company out there. So that is why they are going with RPA. Then what are the key aspects you have to check when you are doing something with RPA? Okay, first thing is going to be your process is highly manual. It is repetitive. It is rule based and with low acceptance rate. For example, you have lot of Excel work. Okay, you get multiple, like hundreds of Excels every day. But every day you are going to do the same work on this Excel. So that is going to be something that can be automated. Every day you get hundreds of Excel. On every Excel you have to like copy and paste from one sheet to another. You have to delete some sheet and you have to do all these work. These are again going to be repetitive. You will have multiple people doing the same work in an organization. So all these things. And again the rules are also going to be the same. Whatever be the Excel file, you again have to copy from one side of the Excel to another sheet of the Excel. So all these things together, when they combine, they make it the perfect candidate for RPA. Okay. And one more thing to note, I've mentioned the last word has standard electronic readable input. So in some cases, for example, a PDF or a Word document that is coming in or an Excel file that is coming in, everything is again printed. So that makes it very easy for the robot to read them and take decisions. But for example, if something is handwritten, in that case, when you write I in the handwritten form and when I write an I in the handwritten form, both of them are different, right? Our handwritings are different. So the robot may not know how to proceed that. You may put a straight line. It could mean an L or it could mean an I. It could mean some other alphabet as well. You may write a B like an 8. You may write an S like a 5. So there are many different. So whatever is not standard electronic readable input, we should pretty much like not bring it into RPA. We should go ahead with some other techniques for automating such types of applications. So again, one more thing, RPA, the key facets of RPA are going to be, first thing is going to be, it mimics human action. Okay. So many people may think that RPA means we are going to like do something in the system or we are going to like break the system, something like that. That is not going to happen. First thing is whatever the human is doing currently, whatever the human is doing every day, that is the same thing that robot will also be doing. For example, you go to a website, you enter your username, you enter your password, you log into the website and then you maybe like extract some data. Again, the robot is again going to do the same thing. It is going to launch a browser, it is going to launch the website, then it is going to enter the username, enter the password, then again click on the login button, then going to extract the data. So whatever the user is doing currently by clicking on the keyboard or clicking on the mouse, same thing is what RPA is also going to do. So RPA is just a like whatever human is doing, it is going to mimic the same action in the form of scripts. That is what RPA is. Next thing is going to be operates on any application. So like I said, if the human is able to like click on a button or human is like to enter a text in an application, RPA is also capable of doing the same. Whatever human is doing at any point in time, same thing RPA can also do as a robot. The next thing is going to be they read and process data in structured form. So again, like I mentioned, for example, there is a table, you're getting it. Okay. So it is easy to read the data from the table. But if the same table, instead of a table, they are giving it as a large paragraph. So you have to read through that. Every time the content of the paragraph may be changing. Some of them may have different words altogether. So all these are not in a structured form, right? It could be like a story. But a table, it is very crisp, it is very clear, it is in a structured form. So wherever there is structured data involved, it is easy to bring in RPA, but wherever there is unstructured data, it is quite difficult to use RPA. Then next thing is going to be working without mistakes and without rest. So we humans, we may tend to make mistakes. For example, on a Friday night or on a Monday morning, we may be a bit late and we tend to make a mistakes in our calculations or anything like that. But the robot, that is not the case. Be it a Monday morning or be it a Friday night, be it the end of the month, anytime the robot is going to do the calculations accurately and it is never going to get tired. We as humans can work only 8 hours, but robots, they can work for 24 hours. That is going to be one more advantage. Next thing is going to be quick to implement and powerful to scale. For example, you have one robot today and you feel that you are getting multiple requests. You want to make 2 robots, you want to make 3 robots, you want to make 10 robots. It is very easy and you just have to like keep on building robots. It's the same script that the robot is going to be doing. Okay, there is nothing new to be done here. You have one robot, you just have to make a copy of the other copy of that and it becomes the second robot. It is as simple as. So now this particular course we are focusing on UiPath. Okay, so I'll tell you the difference between RPA and UiPath. Okay, RPA is nothing but robotic process automation. It is nothing but a technology. For example, a simple example would be email is a technology. But you have Gmail, you have Outlook, you have Microsoft. So you have various email providers. In similar format, RPA is nothing but it is a technology, robotic process automation. And in that, we have multiple vendors or multiple providers. For example, UiPath, Automation Anywhere and Blue Prism. They are going to be the market leaders. Okay. So why we are going with UiPath is nothing but, if you look at the graph here, in 2017, UiPath only had 3% of the market share. Okay. But now they have around 24% of the market. So UiPath has had a vast growth and today everywhere that you go, wherever you speak about RPA, right, it is about UiPath. So the word UiPath and RPA have become very synonymous because, for example, when we tell Gmail or when we tell email, it now means the same because everyone is using Gmail. But there are other email providers like Outlook, Hotmail and all, right? It is the same way. We have RPA and we have other vendors, but it is pretty much UiPath that everyone is going forward. So that is why we have chosen UiPath for this. Now what has made UiPath very good? Okay. First thing is going to be it requires zero programming skills. So as we move ahead in the course, right, you will see that you will not be needing any programming skills at all to build robots. That is going to be a first. Second thing is going to be how we are going to build the robots or how we are going to generate the scripts. Everything is going to be user friendly, visual designer, and everything is going to be just drag and drop. For example, you want to like assign something, you just drag and drop the assign component. You want to open an Excel, you drag and drop the open Excel component. You want to like copy data, you drag and drop the copy Excel component. Okay. So everything you have a component, you just have to drag and drop those components, and there is no need of any writing any script. Okay. That is going to be first. Next thing is going to be provision for both attended and unattended robots. So I'll explain the difference between both attended and unattended robots now. So first, what I mean by attended robots is the human is also going to work, the robot is also going to work. They are going to both work parallelly. That is what we call as an attended robot. A simple example would be whenever you call a call center, a mobile call center or a bank, right? By the time your call is connected to the executive, they have pulled up all your data. Okay, they have pulled up your account balance, your account number. What they have as input is nothing but your phone number. So they know from whom the phone number is coming. They only have the phone number as an input, but their output is going to be your account number, your last 5 transactions, your account balance, everything they have on the screen. So that is nothing but an attended robot. So what they do is, by the time your call is connected, they trigger the robot by clicking a button or something. And the robot like fetches everything from the database and brings it on that screen. So that is nothing but an attended robot, where the robot can only like fetch the data, but it cannot talk to the customer, right? So the human has to do the talking part and the robot has to do the back-end process. That is what we call as attended robot. And the next what we have is unattended robot. This is something like any BPO work or any other Excel work, whatever the manually we do normally, right? There is no need of any user intervention at all. For example, the input could be an Excel file which comes as an email. So whenever the email comes, robot can start like copying the Excel file. It can do its Excel operation, and at the end of the processing, it can again send an email. So there is no human intervention needed there. That is what we call as unattended robot. So we have the capability to build both attended and unattended robots using UiPath. So the next thing is going to be we have a web-based orchestrator to record and control robots. So now that you have built all your robots, you have all your scripts, everything ready. Now and there are multiple robots in the organization. So I should have something like a dashboard, right? Or a web-based component where I can see which robot is running, which robot is currently stopped, which robot is giving me more success, which robot is not giving me success. So all these things you can see it from a web-based orchestrator. So orchestrator is nothing but a control room where you have like a dashboard where you can see how many requests have been success, how many requests have been failure. All these things you will be able to see. So we'll see about orchestrator as well. I'm just giving an overview. And the last thing is going to be recorders are available to convert user action into automation. So in UiPath, you have something called as a recorder. Okay, a web recorder or a desktop recorder. You have things like that. So what that does is you just have to like on the recorder, switch on the recorder, and then you will have to do your work. For example, opening a browser, entering a username, entering a password, clicking on automate, click on login button. And once you're done with your activity, you just have to stop the recording button. What it will do is it will just convert all the actions that you have done into automations or into automation components. So this is like, in that case, there is no need of any coding itself, right? Whatever you're just recording, it will automatically turn into scripts and then you can run them whenever you want. So that again, the facility of recorders is available in UiPath. So all these things together make UiPath the market leader. Next thing is going to be an overview about RPA UiPath. Okay. What are the 5 stages that we have and what are the life cycles of a typical automation project? So once we start, we will be starting with the discover phase. So we'll start with discover is nothing but we are going to gather the requirements or we are going to discover what are the automation possibilities in an organization. For example, you may like log into a machine daily, you may do some Excel work, you may do some web-based work. So all these things. That is where the discover phase is going to be, where we are going to find out what are the processes that you're doing in your machine daily which can be automated. So for that, we have components like automation hub, task capture, process mining, and task. So we are not going to do this part because as a developer, your work starts from the build phase. Okay, discover is nothing but we are identifying places where the automation can be applied. So once we do the discover phase, we will be moving into the build phase. So build is nothing but this is where once we are identified, okay, this is the task that I have to do for automation. For example, there is a web-based task. You are logging into a website, you are downloading the report. You have identified that this is something that you are doing daily I can automate this. That is going to be a discover phase. Next, in the build phase, what you will have to do is you will have to build the scripts for this. Correct. So you will have to record your action. For example, you will have to record opening your browser. You will have to record like clicking on the button. You will have to record entering your username, entering your password. You will have to record extracting the table, extracting the report. So this is what you will be doing in the build phase. So in the build, what component we are going to use is nothing but the studio. So we have three types of studio. I'll talk about that as well. But pretty much what we are going to do is we are going to use studio for the build phase. This is where you will be doing all your automation components. Then we have something called as document understanding. It's a very premium feature. It is used for like processing documents in the form of PDFs or scanned PDF. And then we have something called as marketplace, where already people might have developed a lot of automation. For example, reading an email, reading an Excel file. All these are very common tasks, right? People will be doing it daily. So others would have created their automation scripts and they would have put it on the marketplace. You can just download the components from the marketplace and you can just run the automation. There is no need of building itself. That is what the marketplace is going to do. So what we are going to focus is nothing but on the studio in this part of the course. So once we have built the components, we will have to like deploy it and run it on a daily basis. So that is where our manage part is going to come. So on the orchestrator, like I said, we have a tab. So there we are going to like manage, deploy and optimize the automation. So we can see like how many automation have failed, how many are success, what is the reason for failure, where I have to do my improvements. All these things we are going to see on the orchestrator. So you have like other components like AI Fabric, testing suite, data service, insight. So what we are going to focus is nothing but on the author. So once we have the automation run ready, so we will need something to run the robot or run the scripts that we have generated. So we have recorded all our scripts. Now we need something to run this. That is what we call as robot. So robots are nothing but they are just a component which is used for running the robot in the background or in the foreground. However you want, you just have to like run the robot. That is what we call as robot. We have attended and unattended, and then we have test robot. So we will be working with the attended and unattended robots in this part of the course. So this build, manage and run are the three phases which we are going to like pretty much see in this part of the course. So we will be using the studio in the build phase, we will be using the orchestrator in the manage phase, and we will be using the robots attended and unattended in the run. And then we have engage, is nothing but where we will be getting some input from the user and then we will be giving a reply back to the user. It's something called as chatbot, right? Whenever you go to any website, for example, the IRCTC website, if you just go to the IRCTC website, automatically a chatbot pops up in the right hand side. So if you enter like some keywords, for example, I need ticket, it will tell you the steps what is needed. So it is nothing but again a chatbot which does the work automatically. So that is what the engage part is going to be. It is again going to be an attended automation because you are working seamlessly based on the input that you are getting from the user. So our major focus is going to be on the build, manage and run part, where we will be using Studio for the build phase, orchestrator for the manage phase, and robots for the run. So I will just go through these components one by one so that you will get an idea of what is what and how we are proceeding further. So first thing is going to be, we will be looking at Studio, and then we look at robot, and then we will look at orchestrator. We'll see what is Studio. So Studio is nothing but it is the design canvas which we are using for developing our automation. So we have drag and drop components. We will be dragging and dropping whatever we want into the flowchart like Visual Designer so that our automation scripts are generated. This is what we are going to use Studio for. So we have three types of Studio available. Okay, first one is going to be Studio X. Next one is going to be Studio, and the third one is going to be Studio Pro. So who uses Studio X? Studio X is primarily for business users who have pretty much zero programming knowledge. For example, a manager of a bank or an accountant in a bank, right? They don't know what is IT itself. So for people like them, there is this Studio X where it is like the form of every word has a description. What does this do? What does that do? So all those things we have in the Studio X. And then we have Studio. Studio is nothing but for RPA developers who have like knowledge about coding, not only coding, knowledge about IT industry, and they know, for example, if I tell something called as a data type, they know what is a data type, right? So in that case, we use the Studio. So in this part of the course, we are going to use the Studio as. And then we have something called a Studio Pro, which is going to be for advanced programmers, people who are like very knowledgeable about data structures, people who know about testing suites, people who integrate with other systems. So for all of them, for specialized developers, we will be working with the Studio Pro. So we are going to focus on Studio for this part of the course. So what does the Studio do? So Studio can help us in recording our workflows. So whatever error prone coding that we may do, right, everything Studio can generate automatically if we just like switch on the recorder and do a task, it will be generated into a flowchart so that you just have to execute. Then you also have a facility to connect to marketplace, right? Just like I told, people might have like developed the automation before itself. You just have to download them and you can just use it all together. That is going to be one more feature which we have in Studio. Then we can collaborate with other third-party tools as well. For example, you have Excel, you have Outlook, you have Gmail, you have Salesforce website. So whatever component that you create for logging into the website can be reused by the other 4 people, right? So all these reusable part, all these things are again going to be available using the Studio. So the next thing is going to be, once we have developed our automation and once we have everything ready, we will need something to run the automation, right? We will need a component to run the robot. For example, in a Studio, you are just designing the component. But for example, if you want the robot to run every day at 9 a.m. or you will have to run it every Monday, something like that. So for that, we will be using the robot. So robot is nothing but it is a component which is going to run whatever automation which we have created. So robots are nothing but they are intelligent, reliable, flexible, and they are able to run a large amount of tedious activities. So for all automation part, we will be using the robot for running whatever automations we have created. So you can use Citrix Automation. You can run this on a desktop. You can run it on any virtual machine, or you can run it on some other Amazon workspaces. So everywhere, wherever you want, you can deploy your robot. This is again possible using the robot. So robots again, they are capable of doing only rule-based tasks. So whatever for example, there is something that comes out of the syllabus, right? What we typically tell. So all these things cannot be done by the robot. For example, you tell the robot to send an email, it will send an email. But for example, to send an email to person, but the person has left the organization. So you will be getting an undelivered email, right? But that time the robot does not know what to do. The robot will only do things which you tell the robot to do. For example, if you tell the robot that if you get an undelivered mail, do not reply to that mail or something like that. If you put a rule there, then the robot can reply. Then the robot can do the task. But if the robot cannot, if you have not told the robot what to do, then the robot will again not be able to. So again, the rules are going to be very logical and very constant here. So once we have the rules ready and once we have the robot being able to execute the task which we have created, we will need something to like monitor the robots, right? We will need to see which robot is running, because daily for example, if you have deployed it on a remote server on some other server, we cannot like daily log into the server and see if the robot is executing or not, right? And if you want to like start the robot, if you want to like stop the robot, for example, your application is down, it is not working. Again, in that case, you will have to stop the robot. Again, for that, we will be using the orchestrator is nothing but a web application. It will be just like a URL. Okay, you just have to like go to the URL. You will have to like give your username and password, enter it. You can see all the robots, all the tasks that are pending, how many were success, how many were failure. So all these things you will be able to do with the orchestrator. Again, in some IT organizations, there will be a need to see what the robot has done. So every step-by-step log they will be up. So again, that is also available in the orchestrator as part of audit trail. And then last thing is going to be for every task, right? You will have to get the percentage of success and percentage of failure, because RPA is nothing but money, right? How many jobs have we saved, or how much amount of money were we able to save? So all these things are going to be taken care by the orchestrator. So orchestrator is again going to give you the graphs, the pie charts of how many success, how many failure, how many were not working. All these things are going to be taken care by the orchestrator. Studio is going to be for designing, robot is going to be running the automation, and orchestrator is going to be like a dashboard where you can like get an overview of what and all you have automated. I'm just moving on to the next part. So we'll see about the lab setup. Okay, now that we know what and all we will need UiPath, the Studio, robot, and the orchestrator. Okay, so how to get them for free and what are we going to do for as part of the lab setup? So what we are going to do is we are going to use the UiPath Community Edition 2020, which is readily available from the internet. We'll be downloading the Community Edition, and the Community Edition is going to give us both the Studio and the robot. And then for an orchestrator, since it's a web-based component, we have the Cloud Orchestrator, which is available free of cost again without a license from UiPath as part of the Community Edition. So we'll sign up on the Cloud Orchestrator, and then you will be getting a orchestrator as well. Okay, so you can monitor your robots, you can monitor your tasks, whatever you're developing in your Studio. All these things can be monitored on the Cloud Orchestrator. So system requirements are going to be very minimal. Just a 4 GB RAM, 50 GB hard disk, Windows 7 and above. All that is what you are going to need for like setting up your robot. We have something called as cloud.uipath.com. Okay, so this is where we are going to download the Studio and access the orchestrator from. So I will just show you that. Okay, if I go to cloud.uipath.com, right, it will ask me to sign in, or if you don't have an account, you will have to like sign up. So I already have an account, but I'll show you the sign up part. You just have to click on sign up. you can sign up using your Gmail, you can sign up using Microsoft LinkedIn, or you can sign up with email. Let me just do sign up with email. It will ask for the organization name, the first name, the last name, the country, email and password. And then you will have to just tick in and click on sign up. Okay. This is how you will have to register for UiPath the cloud platform. If you already have Gmail or a LinkedIn account, you can use that as when you go to sign up. Instead of giving all the details, you will have sign up with Google, sign up with Microsoft, or sign up with LinkedIn. You can use sign up with Google, and it will pick up the details from your Google account. There is no need of filling up the form as well. Or I'll just sign in there. So once I click on, let me use Google. Okay. As you can see that you will get this page. Okay. It is nothing but the automation, UiPath automation cloud page, where you will have the orchestrator services, you will have licenses, you will have 2 out of 2 licenses. Okay. You will only have licenses for the RPA developer named user. You will not be having it for the attended user. If you're signing up now, because I signed up long back, now they've changed the licensing. That is why I'm getting a red color here, since I've already used up my licenses. You will have 2 licenses, which means that you can install the studio on 2 machines. That is what it means. Okay. No need to worry about the license part. You will anyway be having 2 licenses. Like it is shown here, you will have 2 out of 2 for the RPA developer version. You can just download the studio and use it. And now how to download studio? You will have the design your workflows in UiPath Studio. You will have this part here, okay, on your right hand side. There is something called as download studio. This is going to be the community edition of studio. You will just have to click on the download studio part and your studio is going to get downloaded. I will just click on download studio. So you can see studio is going to get downloaded. There is no installation as such. You just have to download the studio from this orchestrator part. So I already have the studio available with me. I will pause this. And then I was talking about orchestrator, right? The cloud-based orchestrator. So you will have an orchestrator services here. Okay, you will have one orchestrator services automatically available here. You can just click on that. It will load the UiPath orchestrator page. So as you can see here, it is having the number of processes, number of assets, number of queues, number of criticals, number of users. So all the details. For here, I have many of them are faulted. I have 95 faulted. I have 13 successful, 8 stopped. Nothing but the jobs history and how many transactions I have run. I have the automations tab. It shows all the process that I have. I have the robots tab, which will have all the robots which I have created. So whatever you have created, right, everything will show up here. Whatever robots you have used, everything is going to show up here. Then you will have environments, you will have monitoring. So monitoring is nothing but the overview of the robots. How many robots do you have? How many are available? How many are disconnected? Here I have 2 of them disconnected. So that is why it's showing as disconnected. Then you will have queues. So as you can see here, there is nothing much to do here, right? It is just a monitoring tool which is going to show how many are in progress, how many are remaining, how many are pending. All the monitoring part you will be able to do using the orchestrator. So we'll see what is queue, what is monitoring, what is robot. I just wanted to give you an overview about the orchestrator so that you know what is what. So you can see that this is nothing but a monitoring tool, right? You can see that. The studio is where we are going to do all our automation. Once the studio is done, once we deploy the process, it will show up in the processes tab, the automation tab here. So I can see 2 processes here. Then we can running and stopping, everything is going to happen from the orchestrator. Just to give an overview of what the orchestrator is. So you can do the same setup on your machine. You will just have to register using your Gmail account and you will have access to the studio as well as to orchestrator. So once you have downloaded the studio, what you will have to do is you just have to double click on this. That is the only thing that you will have to do. It will automatically open up. Okay. So this is going to be your studio. I will, what I'll do is I'll close, I'll open again. I have just double clicked on studio. I'll show you the studio opening up. So the studio is going to launch. You will just have to wait for a few minutes for the licensing to be uploaded. While I wait for Studio to be open, let me just quickly go back to my PPT once again so that we'll finish off the first part of the session. So once we have done the lab setup, we'll have cloud.uipath.com. That is where you'll have to register. You'll have to download the studio. You'll have to access the orchestrator. That is pretty much what is all about your lab setup. Okay, you have asked how much disk space is required. Only 50 GB. 50 GB is the disk space which is recommended by UiPath. Again, 50 GB it will not be using. It will only be using like 300 MB, and then whatever projects you create, that is going to consume some space. But for a safety side, we mentioned it as 50 GB. Then at the end of this course, what we are going to do is we are going to like do two projects. First one is going to be HR employee onboarding. So this is going to be done once you have completed the like around 20 sessions. Once you have done that, so we will be doing these two courses hands-on so that you will get an idea of how to do a full-fledged automation, right? First one is going to be HR employee onboarding, where we're going to generate employee number and email ID and send a notification to new employees when as part of the HR onboarding process. So this is something that is done in almost all organizations, right? So we have made the hands-on also as similar to a real-life example or a real-life project so that you will get to know how it is being done. So this is something that is being done in every organization. Whenever a new joinee comes in, they will automatically send an email saying that this is your email ID and this is your employee number. So next one is going to be, we are going to see a invoice creation use case where we'll have an Excel attachment which is coming in the form of an email. We'll read from the email, the attachment, and we'll fetch the data in the Excel attachment. So once we have the Excel attachment and we have the data fetched, we will be validating all the data and then we'll enter them into a CRM. So why we are validating, for example, in an invoice, you have columns like description, you have something called as total amount, you have quantity. So the quantity can always be a number only, right? It cannot be A or it cannot be B. It can either be 1, 2 in that manner only. So you will have to like put in some validations because whatever data you are going to give, the robot is going to enter it in the system. But the system may throw an exception. For example, it is expecting a number, but you have entered an alphabet. So that is going to be a failure there. So before entering the value in the system, we will have to do some validation. So once the validations are done and once the data is entered, we will be generating an invoice. So the invoice can be downloaded and can be sent back to the email which you have got from the customer. This is again a real life scenario. In whichever organization you go, you will have a finance department which is they are going to get invoices on a daily basis and they are going to create the invoice, they are going to do the payments and then they are going to send the invoice back. So these two projects we will be pretty much covering in the first part of the session. And what the additional courses which you will be getting session recordings, documents and projects, some interview preparation and also certificate for preparation. Okay. So all these things will be helping you during the course of the session. So we have just started it today. As we move on, you will be getting all these sessions. Okay, our UiPath Studio has now launched. Okay, it says welcome to Studio. So this is going to be the first window that you're going to get. You can watch an introduction video. You can learn about tutorials or you can go to the academy where you can get a free training. I'll click on don't show again. I'll click on close. So this is going to be my UiPath Studio first page. So once you download UiPath, going to be your very first page. Okay, this is nothing but the UiPath Studio. So I have options like open, close, start, theme, tools, settings. Just like any other normal how a Word or how an Excel looks like or how a Visual Studio looks like, it is going to be very similar to that. Okay, you can open a local project, you can clone or check out, process, library, test automation. Once you open UiPath, this is going to be how your settings are going to be. So I will quickly before going into Studio, I'll quickly cover the second session topics as well. I'll just give you an overview of what we are going to see and then we'll come to Studio and do our hands-on there. So I'll just quickly go through the PPT, okay, so that you just have an idea of what we are going to see and then we'll see one by one in the Studio itself in a hands-on. So what we are going to pretty much see as part of today's agenda is going to be about UiPath Studio, about the search box, about activities and projects window, about variables and arguments window, about properties and outline window, about the output and error list, and how to do a simple automation. We'll end the day with a simple automation. So just like I showed you just now, so you have the UiPath Studio. Just when you open up, you will have the options on your left hand side. Then you will have your recent projects here. Whatever projects you have created, all those will be available here. And you will have all the projects types. For example, Robotics Enterprise Framework, background process, orchestration process, transactional process. All these are going to be different templates which are automatically available. You can click on any of these and it will create a similar template for you. And then you will just have to fill your automation there. So these are the three components which we have in the UiPath Studio: options, recent projects, and then the project types. And then we'll be seeing about the search box, the universal search box, so that when you press Control F, you will have the search box available and how it is going to be useful for you, and how to, like, only in the current file, only in all files, how we are going to work with the search box. Because in a real life project, you will be having multiple files, right? You will have multiple automation. For example, you will have an automation file for automating a web application. You will have an automation file for automating an Excel operation. So all these things you will be having multiple files. So you don't know where and all you will have to make a change. In that case, the search is going to be very useful. Then we are going to see about the projects panel. We have the projects, we have the activities. I will tell you what is a project, what is an activity, what is the difference between both, what are the various activities available. All these we are going to see. This is again available in the left hand side of the UiPath. Then we'll see about variables, about arguments, what is a variable, what is an argument, what are the difference between variables and argument, what are the different types of variables available, and what is the scope, what is the default value. All these things we are going to see in the variables and arguments. Then for every component that you have in UiPath Studio, you will have a property. Okay, for example, what is going to be the input, what is going to be the output. That is what pretty much we call as properties here. So here, as you can see, you have continue on error. If you want the automation to proceed in case of an error, then there is a delay after, delay before. For example, you have clicked on a button, but you will have to wait for some time for the page to load. You will have to have a delay, right? That is what is going to be a delay of, like after clicking the button, how many delay should I wait till the next page appears, something like that. Then if you are using a click, then which mouse button should I click? Because you have the right mouse button, you have the left mouse button. Which one should I click? Because in some websites, if you right click on something, you will have a different menu. If you left click on something, you will have a different menu. So you will have to specify all these. These are nothing but the inputs to the particular component or particular activity. That is what we call as a property. So we'll have a look. This is going to be varying for every activity. Yes. Then once you run an automation, how will the output be? What are the error lists that are going to come? For example, sometimes there may be an exception. The website itself has changed, or the website is entirely down, right? In all those cases, your automation is not going to run. So in that case, you will be seeing output. You will be seeing an error list, like what are the errors that have occurred. All these things we will be checking. What are the different types of output we will get, all these things. So at the end, once we have seen all these courses, all these theory part, we'll do a simple automation. Since we have not learned anything about web automation or learned anything about Excel automation, we'll not be able to go in depth. So I will just show you a simple example so that you will get an idea of what is what. Okay, so we'll get an input from a user, then we'll add two numbers, we'll display some. This is just a very simple automation. So then we'll customize the code to include subtract, multiply, and division. So as we move ahead, for example, tomorrow or day after, what we'll do is, once we learn Excel or once we learn how to do web automation, we'll have some real examples there. Today, since we are only going to get an overview of Studio, just to make you comfortable on how to do a simple automation, we'll do this. This is what we'll be covering. So as you can see, you have the this is going to be a first screen. Okay, whenever you open UiPath Studio, this is going to be a first screen. So you can see the version at the bottom of your screen. Okay, it says Studio Pro 2020.4. So you may get, if you're looking for jobs, okay, you may get interview questions like what is the version of UiPath which you're using. So you can mention that 2020.4.3 is the version that I've worked. So UiPath only has two versions. It has a version which is launched in March, it is launched in April, which is going to be the .4 version, and you have a version which is launched in October. That is going to be a .10 version. So you either have 2020.4 or 2020.10. Similarly, you have 2019.4, 2019.10. In that manner is how your versions are going to be there. So you can, if you get any questions like what is the version that you have used, you can tell about 2020. Then you have an option to open a local project. For example, if your friend has created a project, you are just having he has shared the code with you, then you can use the open a local project. Or you have created something today and tomorrow you are going to again open the project, then you can again use the open a local project option. And then there is also something called as clone or checkout. So there is something called as source control, okay, which is nothing but Git TFS or SVN, where we are going to have a version control. Every change that you make is going to be logged in the source control. For example, if multiple people are working, you are also working, your friend is also working, you have made one change, your friend has also made one change. So there are multiple versions available, right? So to get the latest version from a central repository or a central server, you can use the clone or checkout option. So this is going to be very rare only in very large scale industries where they are going to have hundreds of people working together where they can manage the code, we will be using something like a source control to manage that. What we are going to do is we are going to open a local project if you have an automation already available. So if you do not have an automation available, you can create a new project. Okay, we'll start the process part here, and you can also create a library, which is nothing but a dynamic component or reusable component, where if you create a library, your friend can also use it. If there are 5 people doing the same work, then everyone can do the same activity. That is what a library is meant for, nothing but a reusable component. Then there is something called a test automation. It is again for very advanced developer who are going to automation testing, right? That is where we use the test automation. Then you also have multiple templates here. So what we will be pretty much be working on is nothing but the Robotic Enterprise Framework, or it is called as the RE framework. Okay. So this is what is very popular in the market now. Wherever you go, you will have a lot of questions on Robotic Enterprise Framework as well, because every automation is being created in the Robotic Enterprise Framework. So we'll go through this as well. What we'll do is we'll start with the simple process. I'll just click on process here. It will ask me for a name, a location, and a description. So I will just give the name of the process. I'll give it as test process and I'll give today's date just for my understanding. Okay, it is going to be stored in this path. You can change the location. For example, if you want it in the D drive, you can just click on this. You can change the location. Then you can give some description for this. So I will just give day to exercise. Let me click on create. It is going to create a new project for me. Okay, that is what it is going to do. It is going to add all the dependencies that are available. For example, you will need what is in the background is going to be VB.NET scripting. So it is going to like automatically add all the coding modules, add everything into the project. That is what is going to be created. So once you have the studio created, or once you have the project created, this is the screen that you're going to see. Okay, this is going to be your design canvas. On your top, you will have the ribbon. Okay, you will have the home, design, and debug. The home is what we were using till now. This is where we created our project. Now we have moved into the design part. And then you also have a debug for testing the process. Okay, we'll start with design. This is going to be a ribbon where there are going to be multiple options available here. This is one part of the tool. So inside the design, you have multiple options. Okay, first one is going to be new option, where you can create a sequence, a flowchart, a state machine, a global error handler. All these things you will be able to create. I'll tell you one by one what is what. Sequence is nothing but if you do not have any rules or anything like that. For example, one by one you have to do the step. Open the browser, enter the URL, enter username, enter password, click on OK. This is going to be a setup. There is no decision or there is no logic involved here, right? That is what we will be using a sequence for. Next is going to be flowchart. Flowchart is nothing but, for example, you get an Excel there and you have some data in that. If the data is less than 100, then do one operation. If the data is greater than 100, then do some other operation. So you have a condition, right? So wherever you have a condition, in that place you will be using the flowchart. There is something called as if and if else then in the sequence as well. But wherever there are conditions on a whole, where there are multiple branchings available, there are multiple scenarios to be handled, that is where we will be using the flowchart. Any simple step-by-step process, we will be going into sequence, and wherever you have multiple branchings and multiple work to be done, that is where we will be using the flowchart. Then we have something called as a state machine as well. State machine is nothing but a simple example would be a light has two states. It has an on state, it has an off state. In an on, it does some work. In an off, it does some other work. So similarly, you can create a state which is nothing but it is a combination of states. You will have multiple states. You will have a state where the machine is on. You will have a state where the machine is off. You will have a state where the website is on. Something like that. From one state, you can go to the other state. And at the end of this everything, you will be having a final state. Once we do an automation on state machine, you will be able to understand what is what. Okay. For example, you will have a state where you will do all the initialization part. In the initialization, you will be launching the website. You will be launching your web application. All this initialization part is going to be one state. So once your initialization is complete, you will be moving to the next state. Your next state is going to be reading the input data. Correct. So if you have an Excel file, you will be reading everything from the Excel file. That is going to be a second. So once you have read all the data, you will have to process data. That is going to be a third. Correct. So in the third step, you are going to process the data. So during processing, you find that your website is not loaded properly. So you will have to initialize everything from the first. So from the third state, you are going to go to the first state again. So you will have multiple states, and each state is going to have one functionality. You can move from one state to another. That is what we call as a state. Then global error handler is nothing but it is a component. If any error occurs anywhere in the program. Okay, so there are multiple chances that, for example, the website is the design of the website has changed. You are expecting a login button, but the button is not available now. So you cannot like predict them, right? So whatever unpredicted or unhandled exceptions are there, in that case you can use a global handler. So the error handler, what it will do is it will maybe send an email or send a notification saying that some error has occurred. Please look into it. Something like that. Okay. So that is what we use the global error handler. So wherever you have multiple files in your process, but wherever an error has occurred, the error handler will do the work. Whatever steps you have mentioned in the error handler, that will be executed in case of any error. So test case and data driven test case are nothing but for professionals who are doing their automation testing as well. They want to do testing of websites, so that is where we will be using the test case and data driven test. So we will be pretty much working on flowchart and sequence, and we will be using the state machine in the RE framework test. It's going to be the different types of process which we can create. So if you have any questions like what are the different types of process which we can create, it's going to be sequence, flowchart, and state machine. These are the three common projects which we use. And then we have something called as managed packages. So I told you something called as marketplace, right? So these are all the packages that are available in the marketplace. So if I want to like download something, if I just search for example, let me search for Gmail. I will search in the, all packages, get a package for Gmail. This is somebody else has created, and I just have to like download this Gmail package and I can use it in my project. So there is no need for me to code any automation here. This is what we call as managed package. Again, this is again coming from the market. Then we have recording. Recording is nothing but, like I said, whatever actions you do, all those are going to be captured and be generated in the form of an automation. So we have basic, desktop, web, image, Citrix, and computer vision. So we'll have a look at all this recording part as well. And to get so recording is nothing but you're providing any input to the website, or if you're doing some actions on the website. That is what we use the recording for. For example, entering a text in a text box, clicking on a button, all those things are going to be in the recording part. And if you want to like get some text as output from the website, for example, once you have entered your username and password, you want to find out your total balance. So you will have to extract some data from the website, or you will have to scrape some data from the website. For that, you will be using the screen scraping and data scrape. So wherever you just have to like extract a single part of the website, for example, your total balance or your account number, something like that, we will be using the screen scrape. But wherever there is a structured table, for example, your last 5 transactions, it is always in the form of a table, right? That is where we will be using the data. So wherever we have tables, wherever we have structured data, we will be using the data scraping. And wherever we have like single data to be extracted, for example, it could be anything, right? Some data, for example, I have just searched something in Google, I want to know the name of the person who I have searched. Something like that, you can use the screen scrape. Then you have user actor events. For example, you want automation to start on click of an element, or monitoring the mouse. For example, whenever I press the right button, you want the automation to start. Or whenever I press enter on my keyboard, you want the automation to start. So all these options are again available in the user event. Then you have UI Explorer. UI Explorer is nothing but it is going to give you like in your Chrome, you might have seen the HTML code, right? It is going to be like in the form of an XML data where it is going to give you the selector. Once when I talk about selector, you will get an idea of what is what. So that time I will show you about the UI Explorer. It is nothing but it is going to be a unique identifier to identify anything on a website. On a website, you have a text box. So there should be some, the text box should have a name or it should have some ID, right? For finding that, we will be using the UI Explorer so that we can find the uniqueness to that particular text box or particular box. Now, once you have done all your activity, you will have to publish this to the orchestrator, right? So I had showed you the data I had showed you something in the orchestrator. In the orchestrator, you can see the process which I created, right? So if you want your process also to be available here, you will have to click on publish button. So when I click on publish, it is going to be pushed to the orchestrator. So that after that I can create a schedule or run it whenever I want from the orchestrator. So I'll go with the left hand side first and then I'll go to the right hand side. Okay? So just like I showed you in the previous screenshot, I have project here. Project is nothing but what I created just now. Okay, so just now I created a project. The name of the project was test process _ 2020-2021. So I just did a button in the background. It like included some code as well. Okay, so all those codes that were included are going to be shown here. For example, it has UiPath Excel activities, it has mail activities, it has system activities, UI automation activities. So all those are going to be like coming out of the box. They were just added here. Okay, so pretty much no need to worry about this. They are going to like get added automatically. It is nothing but the code that is added in the backend, okay, or in the background, whatever you want to do, that is what. And then you have the settings. It is nothing but all the debug release settings. Again, it is going to be available in the settings. We are not going to do anything here, okay. I'm just showing you that or whatever code you write, all the backend are going to be stored in this format. What we are going to be worried is going to be the main.xaml. So any automation file that you create, it will have an extension called ZAML. You can have any number of automation files. If I add a new, if I click on new and click on new sequence, I'll just click on new sequence. I will give it a name, okay. I'll give it as sequence 1. If I click on create, it'll come up here. My sequence1.xaml has now come up here. Now you may wonder, like, if there are multiple sequence, which one will be executed first? Every time my main.xaml is the one that is going to be executed the first time, okay. From the main.xaml, I can call the sequence 1, I can call sequence 2, whatever code I have, I can call that. Very similar to programming, right? Main is whatever code you have written in the main.xaml, that is going to be executed when you run it from the orchestra. When you click on the play button, whatever code you have it in the main.xaml file, whatever activities you have it in the main.xaml file, that is going to be executed. Okay, you can have any number of sequence, you can have any number of flowcharts, you can have any number of statements. We are not going to be worried about that. So just to be clear once again, whatever automation file that you are creating, right, everything is going to have the format ZAML. Just be clear about it. And then we have the project.json file. It is nothing but the settings again. It is again in the background. For example, what is the version of the project? What is the input to the project? What is the output to the project? Whatever we write as code, it is going to be stored in the form of a JSON file. So again, we are not going to change anything here. What we are going to be worried is going to be about the XAML file. XAML file is where we will be creating all our automation scripts. Other everything is going to be taken care in the background by UiPath. This is about the project studio, where you will get a outline of what all are components, or what all are the XAMLs, or what all are the projects which you have created, and what is the files inside each of the projects. That is what you are using the project tab. Now that you have created the project, okay, you will need to create an automation scripts, right? So each component or each task that we do, we call it as an activity. That is available in the activities tab. For example, in the project, I am clicking on main.xaml. Okay, you can see here in the top, right? It has opened main.xaml, but there is nothing inside this. Inside the XAML, there is nothing available. So it is not going to do anything. So now we will have to build the automation inside this by dragging and dropping. So whatever automation scripts that we use, that is going to be called as activity here. If I go to the activities tab, I have favorites here. So whatever I have been using, it will be shown up here. And for example, there are many subdivisions here. For example, app integration, if I just expand, I will have activities to do automation on CSV file. So just expand it here. It will say read CSV. It will say write CSV. It will say append to CSV. These are all going to be an activity. What this is going to do, if I just hover on that, it says copies all the entries from a CSV file to an Excel table. Okay. So for reading some data from a CSV file, I can use the read CSV activity. For writing some data back to the CSV file, I can use the write CSV activity. Similarly, I have for Excel. For Excel, if I just open, it says I have processing here. I have autofill range, copy paste range, execute macro, insert delete columns, insert delete rows. So all these are nothing but each task that we are going to do. Each of them is going to have an activity. Each of them is going to have an input and output. We'll see about that as well. But just to give an overview on what an activity is, it is nothing but a task that you are going to do. Okay. Each of the tasks is going to have an input and an output. I will just drag some activity, okay. I'll just show you. For example, I will do a write line, okay. I will just drag a write line. I just have to drag and drop. It will automatically create a sequence. Inside the sequence, you will have the write line activity here. I just drag the write line from here and it has come down. So what is the write line going to do? If I just hover on that, it says write a specified string to the output window. Okay, that is what my write line is going to do. So in my left hand side, I had my projects and my activities. Okay, projects are nothing but an overview of all the files that you have, and inside the file you are going to have multiple automation components. That is nothing but it is called as an activity. These are the two things which you are going to be worried about. Then you have one more window called as snippets. Snippets are nothing but it has already inbuilt automations. Okay, if you have some doubts, you can just refer to this automation files available here, so that you can see how the code is being written, and all those things can be done in the snippets part. We will not be using this. It is again just for your reference here. We will be worried about the project and activities part. Now you saw me drag and drop the right line. Okay, I will drag and drop. Maybe I will drag and drop an assign as well. So once I drag and drop an assign is nothing but I am assigning some data to a variable. Correct. That is what my assign is. Now in my right hand side, I will have something called as a properties window. Property is nothing but just like I mentioned, it is going to have all the input and output for that particular component. So in assign, you will need two things, right? Which variable I have to assign and to what I have to assign. For example, I have to assign like my age is equal to 5. So in that case, I will be writing my age is here, and I will be writing the value 5 here. Whatever you type here will automatically come here as a property. Okay, 2 and value. That is nothing but this 2 is going to be this place and this is going to be your value place. Similarly, if I go to right line, it will have a different property altogether. It is having a text property, or it is going to have a text writer property. Both are going to be the same. We will be using the text property here. Text writer is nothing but if you want to write to like some other output panel. By default, it is going whatever you write in the right line is going to be shown in the out panel. Okay, but if you have a separate like window or separate application, that is when you can use a text writer. So we'll be focusing on the text. So I just wanted to show you that the properties are going to be different for each of the components. Okay, here you had 2 and value, but here in right line you are having a different thing. And for example, if I like bring in an Excel component, it is going to have a different value here. It is going to have a different properties here. I drag the invoke VBA. It is going to have code file path, entry method name, very advanced things, right? But just wanted to show you about the property so that all the input and output are available here. And then if you're creating large automations, right, you may want to have a small view about the automation. So that is where your outline is going to be helpful here. So I am having an assign activity, I am having a write line activity, I am having an invoke VBA. So what and all I am having here, it is being shown in the outline part. I am having assign, I am having write line, I am having the invoke VBA. So all these things are going to be shown in a outline format in the outline tab. So we saw about the projects and activities here. We saw about the properties and outline tab. UI object browser is an experimental feature, so we will not be using that. It is going to come only in the community edition. In the real version, it is not going to be available. It is only for developers to try out. We will be playing with the properties and outline, and then here we saw about the project and act. Now let me just show you. I will remove this invoke VBA. I'll delete everything. I'll start from fresh. So I have a sequence here. Now, if I want to change the name of the sequence, right, it is nothing but it is going to be the property of the sequence, right? If I go to the properties, it says display name, it says sequence. So I will just mention that as calculator. If I click on enter, whatever I mentioned in the display name, that is going to be changed. Now, why I have to change the name, right? You will be wondering, I can keep it a sequence itself, right? Because if you have multiple sequences, then you will not know where your error has occurred or in which place you have to make a change. But if you give unique names to each of a sequence, it is easily identifiable. And I can easily come back to this place and I can tell that, okay, in calculator sequence, I have to make the change for something like that. It is again going to be, as a best practice, as a readability, we are using the Now I have a calculator. It is nothing but a sequence which you have dragged and dropped. So in the sequence, I can have any number of automation components. I will be using the assign activity. Let me just start with assign activity. It is going to be the very simplest of automation. Or let me just do the right line. Okay, I will click on right line. I will just drag and drop the right line here. So in the right line, as you can see, it needs one input. Okay, the input is going to be in a string format. So a string is nothing but any set of characters. Okay, so you are aware about string, Kiran? You know what is string, what is an integer. To that extent, you know programming, or do you want me to explain what is a string as well? String is nothing but a collection of characters. Okay, so when you come to programming, there are multiple data types. Data type is nothing but the various types of data that you have. For example, if take any quantity, okay, it is going to be in the form of a number. Quantities are always going to be in the form of a number. It can be 1, it can be 2, it can be 3. So whatever is the form of a number, we call it as an integer. Okay. Similarly, our age, again, it is going to be in the form of a number. So all those things we are going to call it as an integer. But our name, our occupation, all those things are going to be in the form of text format. Okay. That is what we call as a string. So strings are nothing but for 1, 2 in that format. It can only be a whole number. Ages are always going to be integer. But then when you come to money, right, money can have both whole number part and a decimal part. It can be like 1.10, 1 rupee and 10 paisa in that format. It can be like 100 rupees and 10 paisa. So wherever you have a decimal point involved, we call that as a double or a float data type. Okay, these are something like basics of programming. I'll focus on integer, strings and double. These are going to be like pretty much, this is going to cover everything that we're going to. Text is going to be wherever we have the input as text, you will have to enter a string. Wherever you have something like a number, you will have to enter an integer. And wherever you have something like a in the form of a decimal point, you will have to enter a double or a floating point. So here it is a text. I have just entered a string. So strings are always in double quotes. Okay, strings are always going to be in double quotes. So whenever I mention, for example, if I don't give a double quote, it is going to show me an error here. It says compilation error encountered processing expression. Welcome to UiPath. It says end of an expression expected, which means that my codes are missing. Okay. So when I enter my code, here, the error is going to be gone. So whenever I enter a string, it should be in the form of a code. So let me just run this automation for you so that I can show you the output as well. I will just click on to run the automation. You have 4 options here. Okay. You have the debug file, run file, debug and run. So what the debug file is going to do is only this particular file it is going to run, or only this particular file is going to debug. Debug is nothing but one by one. Okay. If you have 5 activities here, it is going to do activity one by one in a slow format, or debugging, what we call as. It is going to do it one by one. But run file, it is not going to like wait for anything. Everything is going to do at once. So you will get to see the output only after the only after the 5 activities are done. There is going to be a speed difference as well. The run file is going to be like very fast. It is going to do everything one by one without waiting for anyone. But debug, it is going to be a bit slow so that we can check the input, we can check the output. All these things can be done using the debug file. And you have debug and run. Okay. So if I showed you in my project tab, I have something called as the main.xaml. For example, if I going to go to sequence 1, and if I click on run file, right, only that my sequence 1 will be running. But if I go to sequence 1 and click on this run, okay, this entire project, when I tell the entire project, the starting point is going to be main.xaml. So by default, it is going to start with the main.xaml. That is what my run is going to do. But if I give run file, only this particular file, only my sequence 1, whatever I am written in sequence 1, only that is going to run. So I need only my main file to run now. So what I'll do is I'll give run file. If I give run file, just wait for the automation to come. You can see it has changed into a stop button, right? Now my automation is complete. If I go to my output tab, you can see that test process started and there was comment like welcome to UiPath and test process entered in 4 seconds. So whatever I wrote here in the form of a write line, whatever text I wrote has automatically come up in the form of in the output panel. So this is nothing but a simple automation. Not an automation, but a simple, for debugging purposes, we will be using the write line. Similarly, I can show you one more activity just to give you a feel of how RPA is going to be. It is going to be a message box. I will put the same in the form of message box. I will again run this file. So what this is going to do is it is automatically going to show me a message box. Okay, my message box has appeared. It says welcome to UiPath. So whatever text I gave has come up in the body of the message box. So if I click on OK, the automation is going to end there. This is going to be a message box here. This is how the activities are going to be. This is what an activity is for. An activity is nothing but an automation component. So here I had 2 activities. First one was going to be write line. Other was going to be message box. So if I see in my output here it took 23 seconds because it took me some time to click on the OK button, right? It has returned the output of write line into the output window and then it showed me the message box. Once I clicked on OK, the process got stopped. So this is nothing but about the activities, about the various properties available, about various projects available, how to run the activity, how to like drag and drop and do anything. Finally, what we'll do is I'll tell you about the variables and arguments. So we have 3 options here. It is called as variables, it is called as arguments, and it is called as import. A variable is nothing but it is a container of data. Okay. For example, you have a value that is constantly changing. You are using age as a variable and you want to use the age in multiple places. In that case, what we do is we create a variable for that. So everywhere, wherever I mention the name age, it is going to like use the value inside the particular variable. It is nothing but a container. For example, if I mention age is equal to 5 and wherever I use the word age, it is going to like substitute the value 5 there. That is what a variable is. And then we have the argument. Argument again is going to be the same concept. Okay, it is again going to be a container of the value there. For example, if I write name is equal to Jitin, wherever I mention the word name in the message box, if I mention like welcome to UiPath plus name, it means that instead of name, whatever value is there in name, it is going to be stored. That is what we call as an argument or a variable. Now, what is the difference between a variable and an argument? So a variable can be used only within this file. Okay. If I am creating a variable in main file, I can use it only inside the main file. If I am creating a variable inside another sequence here, for example, if I have one more sequence here, I can drag and drop one more sequence here. If I drag and drop one more sequence here, and if I am creating a variable here, then I can use the variable only inside this particular sequence. Similarly, if I am creating, I can show you an example. I am clicking on this particular sequence. I am going to the variable. I am going to create a variable. Okay. I am going to give a name for that. Let me say name. And it is going to be what is the type of the variable, what type of value it is going to contain. So it can have string, it can have integer, it can have boolean. Boolean would mean true or false. It can only have two values. It can either have a true value or it can have a false value. Then there is int32 is nothing but integer, where it is going to be whole numbers. Then we have string. We'll see about the other data type in the coming classes. So I'll just mention this as string, and let me give a default value. Okay, I'll give a default value. Let's say it's okay, so it is if you see a scope, right, it is mentioned in this particular sequence. I'll just change the name of the sequence. I will mention sequence 2. Okay, as you saw, I have mentioned the name of the sequence 2. So this name is available only inside sequence 2. So whatever activities I drag and drop inside sequence 2, only there I can use. If I click on here, okay, I cannot see my name that field because it is not available outside the sequence. That is what the difference between a variable is going to be. Variable can be used only inside a sequence. But when we come to argument, right, you will not have a column called scope, can be used anywhere within the project. To create an argument, it is something like global. Wherever you want, you can use the argument. And also you can pass data from one file to another file using the argument. For example, you have two files here. You have sequence 1, you have main file. If you want to run the automation in sequence 1 from the main file, you can use the argument. So whatever data is there in main 1 can be passed to sequence 1. Whatever data is there in sequence 1 can be passed to main. All these things you will be needing an argument. So wherever there is data transfer between the files and wherever there is value to be used everywhere in the file, we will be going in the argument. But wherever there is some simple calculations and you want the data to be used only in a particular container, that is where we will be going with the variable. So I have a variable of type string here. It is called as name. Okay. Now how to use the variable? I can change the sequence scope also. For example, I want it to be inside the calculator. I want to use it everywhere inside this. I can use it as calculator. In that case, what happens? The scope is going to be this particular sequence. So even if I click on something outside the sequence 2, I can use my name here. Since now everywhere within calculator I can use. But if I mention sequence 2, if I mention sequence 2, it can be used only inside other sequence. That is going to be my difference. Let me put it as calculator, and I'll show you how to use this particular name. Okay. For example, I have two places here, and I want to tell that welcome to UiPath Jitin. But instead of Jitin, I'm going to use the variable here. For that, what I'll be doing is I just have to write the name here. Okay. The name of the variable is going to be name, right? So when I just if I have multiple strings, for example, I have multiple strings here. First one is going to be my welcome to UiPath within quote. That is going to be my one string. Then I have next string to write. That is going to be my name. I just have to put a plus symbol in between. It means that welcome to UiPath and plus it will show me all the variables and all the arguments which I have created. So you can see the name has come here, right? It says local variable name. It is a string. I just have to click on the down arrow and click on enter. Okay, my error has now gone. So it means that welcome to UiPath plus name. So in name, it will not print name. Okay, what it will print is, it will print whatever value is present inside name. So inside name, I have the value Jitin. So whatever value is there inside name, that is going to be printed here. For example, I will put it in the message box as plus. Okay, let me just try running this. Yeah, my message box has come. It says welcome to UiPath and Jitin. So I gave the word name there, but since name was containing the value Jitin, it showed me welcome to UiPath Jitin. Okay. So let me just click on OK here. That means that the automation is going to get completed here. So if you see in the output also, it will say welcome to UiPath Jitin. So I can, for example, I have used the word name in multiple times, right? Now, why am I using a variable? That will be your question. For example, if I just change the value here, just click on the scope. I will change the value here to ABC. So wherever I have used the word name, okay, I have used the word name here, I have used the word name here, I may use it in multiple places. Everywhere the value is going to be AB. That is why it is helpful to use variables here, because if I change it in one place, everywhere wherever I am using this particular word, it is going to be changed. So in between the process, if you want to like change this particular value of, this is going to be a default value, right? For example, when we start this particular sequence, the value is going to be AB. But after some time, you want to change the value. For example, for that, what you have to do? You will have to go with assign activity. I'm going with assign here. So to which variable I have to assign? I have to assign to the variable name. And I am assigning the value XYZ. So at the start, it is going to be ABC, since that is what is the default value. It is going to like print ABC here. It is going to print ABC here. Then I am changing the value. I am using an assign statement. The name is going to be XYZ. Let me do a write line again to see if my value has changed. If I do a write line again, I'll copy whatever I've written here. Okay, I'm again writing welcome to UiPath name, but in name now I have a different value. After this point, my name is going to have a different value. This run. Okay, it says welcome to UiPath ABC. I'm clicking on OK. My automation is now complete. If I go to output, so initially it was welcome to UiPath ABC. That is this message box. Then it didn't assign. I changed the value of name to XYZ. Then when I the value of changing the value of the variable. I'll delete everything. I will delete this particular variable also. If you have to delete, you will just have to right click on this and there is option called delete. I will need two variables, right? I will need two variables here to get the number from the user. I will need to get the first number. I will need to get the second number. And then first what we will do is whatever number we get from the user, we will add those two numbers and we will show as an output. Now to get the input from the user, we will have something called as activity for that. So just click on input. You just type input here. It says input dialog, right? It says displays a dialog box that prompts the user with a label message and an input field. I will just drag and drop this title. I will say calculator. Okay, I am not using a variable here. I'm just directly writing it in the form of a string here. And the second one was label. It says the text must be quoted. So I will just mention enter first name, enter first number. Okay, so now that my user has entered a value, right, I need to get the value from this dialog box. For that, you have something called as an out. So whatever we gave, calculator and input first number are going to be input, right? You have that in the title, you have that in the label. But whatever the user has entered, we will need that to do the calculation. For that, we will be using the result part. Here, if you see, it says result. If you just scroll on that, right, it says the value inserted by the user. So I will have to create a variable here, and I will have to store the whatever value user has typed in the dialog box in the form of a variable. So what you can do is you can create a variable, for example, number 1, and you can assign number 1. Or what you can do is you can directly hit Control K. Okay, if you directly hit Control K, and if you give number 1, what it will do is it will automatically create a variable of the type string in the variables window. No need of creating anything here. So as and when you need, if you just click on the particular, activity, if you click on result here, if you just give Control K and then give a name, even if the variable is not available, it is going to create a variable for you. That is what is the shortcut key Control K is for creating a new variable. So whatever user has entered in the first number is going to be in the result. Okay. Here, then I will one more input dialog. I will tell calculator, enter second number. I will need one more variable, right, to store the second number. Again, I will hit Control K. I will give number 2. So if I go to the variables tab, if I click on calculator, I will have two numbers here, number 1 and number 2. So now that I have the two numbers, let me do an output here. For example, I can do a message box, or I'll create a variable here. I'll give the variable name as sum. The variable is going to be sum. And I will do an assign activity here. I will assign to sum. My sum is going to be number 1 plus number 2. Correct. User has entered number 1. That is what I'm getting from the input dialog 1. And the number 2 I'm getting from the input dialog 2. So I will tell number 1 plus number 2. Okay. So number 1 plus number 2. That value is now available in the assign activity called sum. So now I have to show the value of sum to the user. So for that, what I will do a message box. Okay. So in the message box, I will tell the sum is plus my sum. Okay. So it will print the sum is and whatever value I enter in, whatever value is present in sum. After adding this, whatever value is present in sum, that will get entered here. So my sum is plus sum. Okay. My errors are now also gone. So it will give me an input dialog to enter the first number. It will give me an input dialog to enter the second number. Then it will show the sum and then it will print the sum for me. Let me just run this automation now. I will go to run file. Okay, it says enter first number. I will enter 10. I'll click OK. You can see, right, the title what I gave was calculator. My title is available here. Then it says enter first number. That is going to be my text here. And now I'm going to enter this 10. Now whatever I enter here is going to be stored in the number 1, the variable that I create. I click on OK. It says enter second number. I give 20. If I click on OK, my message box is going to come. So my message box has now come, but there is a problem, right? It says the sum is 1020. The reason because it is thinking that everything are strings. Okay, strings are nothing but group of characters. So last time when I did welcome to UiPath plus name, it just added both of them, right? Welcome to UiPath, and then after that it just added that. So here also that is what it has happened. So it has like given picked up the first value 10 and it has picked up the second value 20. It has just added both of them, or it has just appended both of them and given me the out. So that is why it is showing as the sum is 1020. Okay, we'll fix that again. So I'll just click on OK. So you can get the basic idea, right? I entered one number, I entered the second number, and then I got an output from the bot as well. I'll click on OK here. So why I got a wrong input there? Okay. So as you can see in my variables, my number 1 is a string. My number 2 is also a string. And my sum is also a string. But my sum should ideally be an integer, right? Because only on numbers I can do the addition operation. If I give addition operation for string, it is just going to like add both of them or append both of them and show me. But if I want to like do a mathematical operation, I will have to use an integer or a number. So my sum, I will change it to a number, or I'll change it to int32. Okay, so when I come here, it is going to show me an error saying that my number 1 is a string, my number 2 is also a string. So when I add both of them, I'll be getting a string, but I have a sum is nothing but an integer here. Here I have a string as a result of this both addition, but here I have an integer, which means that both of them are not correct. I can only assign a string to a string, I can only assign an integer to an integer, but I cannot assign a string to an integer. That is going to be wrong, right? So that is why what I'll have to do is I'll have to convert the number 1 to an integer or number 1 to a number and then number 2 also to a number, and then I will have to add. So for that there is a function. Okay. So whatever value you see here, right, it may be a bit small here. If you go to the value here, that is nothing but whatever value is here, and you click on these 3 dots, it will show me in the form of a bigger screen. Okay. So whatever is available here, for example, it is available number 1 plus number 2. I'm just going to the value part and just click on the 3 dots. It is going to show me number 1 plus number. But I have to convert this to a number and convert this to a number. So for converting to a number, what we do is we have a function. Okay, it is inbuilt. It is a bit of a programming here. So please try to relate here. We'll be using something called as cint. Okay, cint means convert to integer. If I mention cint of number 1, it means that whatever value is present in number 1, it had the value 20 in the form of string, it is converting that into an integer. Again, number 2 also, I will convert that to an integer. Cint of number. It is not case sensitive. Okay, I have missed a I in small letter here. That is not a problem. So it says cint of number 1 plus cint of number, and I click on OK. Now my error has vanished. Okay, because my number 1 is also now an integer. My number 2 also is also an integer. So when I add both of them, I will get an integer. I am assigning that to an integer. But here I am getting an error now. It says the sum is sum. So the sum is nothing but it is a string, right? Because I have given it in the form of a double quote. But my sum is now in the form of an integer. But I will have to convert that to a string here. So that I'll have a string here and I'll have one more string here. So for that, what I'll do is I will. There are two ways of doing it. Okay? You can just give on sum and click on dot. It will show you something called as toString at the end of the string. If you give on toString, whatever value is present in the form of an integer, it is going to convert that into a string here. So that is what this toString is doing. Now let me try run this order. Let me see if I'm getting the correct value. Okay, I'll enter the first number. I'll enter 10 again. Okay, I'll enter 20 again. Okay. My message box, it says the sum is 20. my sum is 30. It is nothing because my 10 was an integer or a number, my 20 was also a number. I added both of them. Whatever result I got, that also I converted that into a number. That is why it says my sum is equal to 30. Again, everything is going to be an integer here. That is why I've got the correct result here. Click on OK. That is going to end my automation here. So here what I've done, I've just got one number as an input from the user. I've got another number as an input from the user. I've added both the number. I've again displayed that to the user as an output. I have done some conversions here because whatever I was getting from the user was in the form of a string or in the form of text. I had to convert that to a number. And at the end also, when displaying it to the user, I had to convert the number to a text. That is what I have done all the cint and toString activities here. What is UiPath workflow? So UiPath workflow is nothing but every file that you create, okay? You can, how you can conceptualize this is nothing but your project is nothing but a notebook. Okay, your project is nothing but a notebook, and every workflow that you have or every file that you have is a page in your notebook. Okay, it is as simple as that. You can go, you can just scroll through the pages, right? So similarly, any flowchart that you create, any state machine that you create, any sequence that you create, everything is going to be one page in your notebook. By notebook, what I mean is your entire process. So just like you can see in this screenshot, right? Your test process is just what we created yesterday. That is going to be your notebook. That is going to be a project. And inside that, you have lots of sequences. You have lots of flowcharts, you have lots of state machines. So all those are nothing but containers, and inside each of these sequence or inside each of the flowchart, you will have activities. Activities are nothing but automation element which is capable of doing a certain function. For example, yesterday we dragged and dropped this input dialog activity. What this input dialog activity will do, it will just ask the input from the user. Similarly, we did an assign activity here. What it is going to do, it is again going to assign some value to the numbers to a variable. Then we did a message box as well. So again, message box, what it will do, it will show a result to the user. All these things, each component which are connected using arrows, they are called as activity. So activity, it is just a component which is capable of doing certain functions. So each activity will have a different set of functions altogether. And then, so a sequence will contain any number of activities. It can have like hundreds, thousands. You can just keep on drawing using your arrows, right? You can click on this plus icon and you can add any number of activities, anything you can. So you have your project is nothing but your notebook. Inside that you have a set of files or set of pages which we called as XAMLs. XAML is nothing but a workflow. Okay, a workflow is nothing but a combination of activities. And then inside the workflow or inside the page you will have lots of activities where each activity is going to do one function. Moving on, then we have something called as arguments. So yesterday we were creating variables, right? We were not creating arguments yesterday. So we wanted number 1, we wanted number 2. So we wanted to store them in your data, right? So that is what we use variables for. So today we are going to see about UiPath arguments. So yesterday we were using a single file, right? In your single sequence, we were like dragging and dropping all the activities and we were doing all our operations in the single file. So that is where we were using variables. And also I talked about scope there, right? So within a certain sequence only I will be able to use a variable. So arguments are very similar to variables. The only difference being that arguments are used in global. So within the document or within the particular XAML file, you can use the argument anywhere. So when I talk about document, when I talk about XAML file, when I talk about workflow, they all mean the same. Okay, that is something that you will have to remember. So document, XAML file, and workflow. All these mean a single file, okay, which contains a list of activities. Activity is nothing but a single component. So you just be like very thorough about the terminologies here so that there is no confusion at all. So arguments are nothing but they are like carriers of data. So for example, I want to like use 2 workflows or 2 files altogether. So in that case, what I will do, I'll have to pass data from one file to another. And once the operation is done in the second file, I need to get the output from the second file to the first file. So again, there also we will be needing something to pass the values, right, from the first to the second and from the second to the first. So that is where we use the argument. In variables, we will not be able to pass the values within the workflows. Only inside a single workflow or inside a single sequence we can use the variable. So arguments are nothing but variables, but they have global scope. That is everywhere within the project you will be able to use this particular arguments. And what are the directions of arguments? Now there are 2 types of arguments. Okay, they are going to be input arguments and other one is going to be output arguments. So yesterday we were creating variables and we were just selecting what type of variable it is. For example, it could be string, it could be integer, it could be boolean. Yesterday we were selecting string and integer. But when you create an argument, an additional value is also supposed to be added. It is called as the direction. For example, if you want to like pass the data from one file to another, or you're sending as an input from one file to another, that is where you will select the value as an input. But if you want to like pass the value from the second file to the first file, okay, that is where you're sending some output. So you're sending some input, you've done some operations, and after that you're sending some output back to the main file. That is when you will create the argument as an out argument. And then there are input in and out arguments, which is you can use the same argument for both sending the data and for getting the result as well. If you're using the same argument for doing both of them, then you call them as in or out argument. So just going to the theory part here so that you will get an idea of what is what, and then we'll go to Studio and see how to create this, what are the various operations. Very common interview question that comes up: what is the difference between variables and what is the difference between arguments? So arguments are used to pass data from one workflow to another, while variables can be used only within a single work. So basically within the activities, if you pass data, it is going to be variables. In your workflow file, you will be having multiple activities, and from one activity to another, if you want to pass some data, you use a variable. But from an entire file to a different file, if you want to pass the data, then it is called as argument. So what are the various types of arguments available? I have just listed a few here. We have string, integer, boolean. Then if you want like tabular data to be extracted, for example, there are many websites which have data in the form of a table. So if you want to extract something from that, or you have an Excel file, you want to extract some data from the Excel file. So you will have to store that data somewhere, right, for us to do some operation. So that is where we use the data table. Data table is nothing but in the form of a table. So this is just a quick overview about arguments. Then what we will do is, we will see about the three types of workflow files. Okay. So we have three types of workflow files, like I showed you yesterday, right? We have sequences, we have flowcharts, and we have state machines. So what is a sequence and what is a flowchart and what is a state machine? That we'll see. So sequence are nothing but it is the smallest type. Okay. Yesterday we used a sequence where we had like around 3 or 4 activities only. We had 2 activities to get the input, one assigned to add the values, and one message box to show the output back to you. So we had 4 activities there. All of them were coupled within the same sequence. So it is going to be the smallest type of project. So you can have only one activity in a sequence, or you can have like hundreds of activity in a sequence. It entirely depends on how we are going to create the automation here. Now where should we use sequence? So wherever there are linear processes, that is where we go with sequences. By linear process, what I mean is there are no conditions involved. For example, yesterday it was very simple. I need to get the input, add it, and then display out. So there is no condition involved there, right? I know the steps beforehand. It is going to be one by one. You will have to execute the steps one by one. That is what we call as linear steps. So wherever there is a linear steps involved, it is going to be very easy, and a sequence would be the perfect container for that. And also they act as a single block activity as well. So within a sequence, you can bring in another sequence as well. And within that, you can bring another sequence as well. So to group the activities together, you can again use a sequence as well. So that maybe you have 3 activities, they are performing the same operation. So you bring them inside a single sequence. And you have another 3 activities which are performing the action on a different website. So you bring them inside the same sequence. And these 2 sequences, you put it inside another sequence. So you can do whatever you want with the sequence. You can bring a sequence inside a sequence. You can bring it outside. However you want, you can do it. It is very similar to an activity. Another advantage what we have is, for example, if you go with a flowchart, right? If you're creating a flowchart type of a file. In that you can add your sequence. In that you can add your sequence as well. But inside a sequence, it is very difficult to add a flowchart. In your flowchart, you can add sequences. Similarly, in your state machines as well, you can add your sequences. Sequences are nothing but a basic container of activities. That is very easy. Then we have flowcharts. So flowcharts are nothing but they present multiple logical operators. For example, yesterday we got the same input and we did only addition. Based on the input of the user, we may have to do addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. There we have to take a decision, right? What input the user has given, what operation we have to do. So based on that, we will be giving a decision there. So based on the decision, we will be doing some branching activity. So there will be like 4 different flows here. One flow will be for the addition flow, one will be for subtraction flow, one sequence will be for the multiplication flow, and one sequence will be for division flow. So you are going to have 4 different branches where based on the decision of the user, you are going to take a program your bot to perform that operation. So that is where your flowchart comes into the picture, where it is very similar to how we draw flowcharts, right? Based on the decision, go here, or based on the condition, go there, something like that. So that is where we will be using the flowchart. Wherever there are multiple branchings involved, wherever there are lots of decision to be taken, we will be going with flowchart. And then we will see about state machines. So state machines are nothing but they have a finite number of states. Okay. For example, like I told yesterday, we may have the first state is going to be logging into a website. The second state is going to be entering the data. Third state is going to be getting the out. The fourth state would be logging out of the website. So what happens if some data is wrong? From the first state, when you're entering the username and password, your password is wrong. Okay. Then you cannot do the second and third state, right? You will not be able to enter the data. You will not be able to extract the data. All those things will not be performed. So you can directly go to the fourth state, which is nothing but closing of the application. In that manner, you have certain states available. Inside the states, you will again have sequences which will be doing a separate set of activities. So states are nothing but four different sections. You can have four, you can have five different sections inside a project. So every state will have one entry section, one exit section, and one transition. By transition, what I mean is it is nothing but an arrow mark. For example, from the first state, if I want to go to the second state, I will draw an arrow mark within the first state and the second state. That is nothing but a transition. Similarly, from the first state, if I want to go to the fourth state, then I will draw an arrow there. That is going to be my transition. So states are nothing but they have an entry, exit, and a transition, and they are nothing but different phases of a project. So variables, like I told yesterday, I will just skip this part here because we were creating sequences. Variables are nothing but within a particular scope. If you want to create some data, then we will be using the variables here. You can use them only inside a single activity, but anything outside of that, you will not be able to use the variable. And the last thing is going to be managing arguments, where we will see what are the various ways in which we can create the arguments, what are the various ways in which we can create, do the shortcuts, then how to pass the values between two activities. All these things we will see in the arguments. Okay. So that pretty much ends PPT. We'll go to Studio and we'll see what we can. Yes. So we started off with arguments today. So I am using the same file which we created yesterday. Okay. I'll just unpin this. So if what I'll do is I'll create a sequence. I'll just drag and drop a sequence. That's easier for you. I will give it as name as sequence 1. Okay, I already have many sequences. So, like I told yesterday, from the project tab, you can just click on whatever page you want, and that is again going to come in. From the main file, I have the main file here. If I want one more sequence, I have sequences here. I can create any number of sequences, and this is going to be my sequence. So this is going to be my flowchart. So I can just click on new and click on anything here. It is going to automatically create that for me in this project pane. Okay. So I'll start with the sequence here. So first thing is how to create an argument. That is what we saw today. First, here we have a button called as arguments. You just have to click on this. What it will do is it will bring up the arguments pane here. Okay, it will bring up the arguments pane. So here you have an option of create argument, the direction, the argument type, and the default value. So if you just click on create argument, by default, the name of the argument is going to come. It is going to be argument name. Okay. You can give any name. For example, I am giving name and then the direction. So like I mentioned, if this is for passing an input from one file to another file, then we will be giving the direction as in. If it is for passing the output, if it is for getting the output from a different file, then we will be giving it as out. If it can be used for both of them, then we give it as property. There is one more thing called as property, which is nothing but for a very advanced concept. It is called as libraries, where we will be using some additional coding and all. So in that case, we will be using the property. So we will not be using this in the normal workflows. So what we will be doing is we will only be using in and out directions. So I will create something as in, and then I will have to give the argument type. Okay. So here by default it creates the type, but if I want to just click on that, it will show me a drop down. I will have boolean, I will have int32, I will have string, I will have object or data or data table. So I was talking about something called data table, right? Nothing but in the form of table or data. So this is nothing but a table or data. And then there is something called as an array. Array is nothing but it is a container where, for example, you have multiple strings or a list of data. For something like that, you can use an array. Now you may think that these are the only 5 data types available. That is not the case. You can always click on browse for data types, and you will have all the data types just supported by programming languages here. For example, if I want to store a date time, okay, if I want to store a date, if I just type date here, okay, it is going to show me all the date formats here. I have system.datetime here. So this format is going to be used for containing some date. Again, these are some advanced programming concepts. If you want to use, you should have some knowledge about programming, so it will be easier for you. I'm just giving an idea of how to use the data types here. If you want to create some custom data types, you can always search for that. You will get a list of all the data types available, and you can just select from that. For example, very simple example is date time. For example, you want to store a date like 11th of August 2020, something like that, or 10th of August 2020, or you want to store a time 11 o'clock or 11 hours 10 minutes and 25 seconds, something like that. Then you can use the date time here. This is pretty much it about the argument section. So similarly, you can create an out argument as well. It is going to be very, very similar. Okay, you just have to give an argument here. Here, as you can see, there is no scope involved here. Even if I have multiple sequences, it is not going to show me a scope or anything like that. But for variables, you will have something called as a scope. If I create a variable inside sequence 1, then I can use it only inside sequence 1. But for the arguments, that is not the case. If I use an argument in if I create an argument in sequence 1, I can send the data from sequence 1 to main. I can send the data from sequence 2 to sequence 1. All those sending of data can be done using the argument. Then moving on to the next concept that we saw, it is nothing but workflows. Okay, we are talking about something called as workflow. So workflow is nothing but it is a file that we create in this particular project. So any sequence that you create, when you click on new and when you select anything from this, it creates a file here, right? If I click on flowchart, it will create a flowchart. It will ask me for a name, and whatever name I give, it is going to create a file here. If I click on a sequence, it is going to again ask me for a name, and based on the name I give, it is going to create a file here. So whatever file I create here, that is what we call as a sequence. Okay, sequence 1, that is what we call as a work. Sequence 1 is going to be my one workflow. Sequence 2 is going to be my one workflow. Main is going to be another workflow. Flow 1 is going to be another workflow. All workflows are going to have this extension .xaml. Okay, so when we call something as XAML, it automatically means a workflow file. A XAML is again a workflow is again a XAML. So people may use different terminology. So it is not about getting confused. If I tell about XAML, it means that it is a workflow. So workflows are what I can open directly here, right? Here you can see that 4 button files are already opened here, because there are 4 workflows here, and when I just double click on that, it will get opened. Only XAML files or workflow files, you can open it here, and inside this workflow file you will have multiple activities here. From the activities you will like drag and drop whatever you want, you can just add it here, it is going to get added. Now we'll see about the different types of files that we saw. Okay, we saw about workflow. Workflows are nothing but container of activities. Now what are the different types of workflows available? First thing is going to be our sequence. So like I showed you yesterday, we just click on new and then click on sequence. You will get a sequence here. And another way of doing it is, if you have an active, search for sequence here, you will be getting sequence here as well. In the favorites and recent are nothing but because I am constantly using sequence, that is why it is showing the favorites. Since I used the sequence recently, it is going to show me a sequence the recent as well. But the sequence is again available in the activities as well. Because if you want to like create one more sequence here, what I will do is I will just drag the sequence here. So that means a sequence inside another sequence. Okay. And if I want to add one more sequence, I will just add it here. I can then rename here. So sequence are nothing but a container of activities. For example, this one I'll give a name as open file or something like that. So all my activities with respect to open file are going, it is just any name that you can give. Okay, I'm just giving the name open file, and then I'll add all the activities related to open file in this particular sequence. So it is easier to group as well. And then similarly, the next one what I'll give is I'll give a read file. So once the open file is done, it will do the read file operations in this particular sequence. So again, it is very easier to group. And one more thing is, if you just click on this up arrow here, right, it is just going to like minimize. I'll show you, I'll add one more thing. For example, if I have right lines here, let's say I have 5 right lines. I'm just minimizing this. It'll get minimized and it'll show only 2 actions, double click to view in that format. For someone who is coding, it is very easier to like do this. I'll add 2 more right lines here. So when I open the file, all I will be able to see that there is a sequence for opening the file. Okay, I will double click on this and I can see what are the activities inside. Similarly, I have one more sequence for reading of the file. So I'll again double click on this and I can see what are the activities inside. So in that format, for grouping of components, we can use sequence. So it is going to be the very basic type of file that we are going to. So I can use anything here. I can use the sequence anywhere inside a flowchart, inside a state machine, anywhere I can use the sequence. So basically for grouping of the activities, we are going to use the sequence. Now moving to flowchart, so if I click on new and if I click on flowchart, my flowchart is going to be created. It is again going to show in properties. It is again going to show in the project pane here. So I will have the flowchart. If I just double click on this, I will have the flowchart. So here, if you can see in a sequence, there was no start or anything like that, right? It did not have a start button, but a flowchart will have a start icon. So from here, we will have to like draw our arrows and create our new sequences. So I can add anything here. For example, if I want to add a right line, I will just drag and drop a right line. You can drag it to near the start button. Okay, when you drag it near to the start button, it will get highlighted. So it will get attached there. That is one way of doing it. If you are not able to do that, you can always delete this arrow also. If you are not able to do that, you can bring your right line anywhere and you can just select from any one of this point to this particular right line. You can just drag and it will draw an arrow automatically. You are just connecting this. So you may have any number of write lines here. You may have any number of activities. For example, if you want to make this as a starting point, you just have to right click on this and click on set as start node, the last option. You just click on that. Again, that will become your start node. Okay. In that way also you can make it the starting point, and then you can just drag it here so it will get attached. So however you want, you can create your automation in this format. Now why we are going with the flowchart? You will have that doubt. So if I go to my activities and if I just search for flowchart, right? Again here also I'll have the flowchart. I can drag a flowchart from here also. I will have like three options: flow decision, flow switch, and flowchart. So flowchart is what I've already used. It is nothing but the container. So inside that, if I want a flow decision, I will just bring a flow decision here. Okay, flow decision will have 2 points. One is going to be true, one is going to be false. So for the flow decision, if you go to the properties, right? So for everything, the input and output, we'll be giving it in the properties panel. So in the properties, you will have something called as condition. So I'll have to give the condition. For example, I'll give, let's suppose that I have a variable called gender, and if gender is equal to male. Okay, this is going to be my condition. This is showing me an arrow, showing me a error because I have not created a variable called gender. Again, for creating the variable, we can use the shortcut Control K. If I just hit Control K, we'll have to create it there. Okay, here. I'll go to my variable. I will create a variable called gender. Okay. So my flow decision now you can see here, right? You can see it in, if I just click on, hover over this, it says gender is equal to male. And then based on the decision, I want to take two sections here. One is going to be, it is true, it is going to be false. So again, let's say I have two more sequences. For example, if person is a male, I have to do a set of activities there. So I will have one more sequence here. This is going to be my true and this is going to be my false. So if I have one more sequence here, I'll bring it here. So if it is true, it will go. If it will go to this point, and if it is false, it will go to this point. Correct. If I drag it a bit down, you can see the conditions as well. So true means it will go to this sequence, false means it will go to this sequence. And inside the sequence, again, I can draw any number of components here. For example, if I want to do a write line, or if I want to do a message box, if I want to do some other operations, anything you can do it inside the sequence. So this flow decision, right, you will not be able to drag and drop inside the sequence. That is why we are going with the flow chart. So if I try to drag and drop the flow decision here, I cannot do that. Okay, I will not be able to do that. You can see, right, I will not be able to do that. So in flowchart, I can use the flow decision, and one more similar component is nothing but the flow switch. Okay, here I only had two options: either it is true, either it is false. But for example, if I have multiple options, for example, if country is equal to India, or country is equal to Australia, country is equal to UK, I want to do some other operation. So I have multiple values there, right? That is where my flow switch is going to be helpful. If I search for flow switch, I'll delete this. Okay, so flow switch is nothing but you can draw any number of values here, right? For example, I just had true or false in the flow decision. But here, if I say, what is the expression? For example, if I say country. I will say, for example, age. Let me say as age, okay? I will create an argument here. Argument or a variable, can be anything, because it is going to be a single file. I'll create an argument. I will give it as a type int32, okay? Because my age is always a number. So here I have mentioned that my expression is going to be age, okay? So based on the age, for example, if age is equal to 1, I can draw one line here. If age is equal to 2, I can draw one more line here. So again, you will have to mention what type of value you are specifying. For example, here you are specifying age, which is a number. That is why I have selected int30. But if I want to say, based on the name, I want to do some operation, I will be giving it as string. Because my names are nothing but it is going to be in the form of characters, right? It is going to be container of characters. That is why I will be giving it as string. Let me just show you the age here. I will give it as age. So here I will just drag and drop one more sequence. From here to here I will make this drop. Okay, it is going to be by default. Default would mean if there are none of them is satisfying the condition, we will be going with the default. For example, I have written the condition for age is equal to 1, age is equal to 2, age is equal to 3, age is equal to 4, age is equal to 5. But I'm getting something like age is equal to 10. Okay, my input is coming as age is equal to 10. In that case, none of my conditions will satisfy. That is where we'll be using the default section. Now let me say I just drag and drop this. Okay, it is for example 0. You see here, right? For 0, it is going to be this sequence. And then similarly, if I draw one more condition, I have one more sequence here. It is for condition is 1. Because I gave the type of the flow as integer, it is coming in the form of numbers here, 0, 1 in that format. The default value will be, for example, I have a condition here for 0, I have a condition here for 1. But if my number is 2, 3, 4, 5, any other number other than 0, other than 1, it will go to this default. Whatever activities I've created inside the sequence, it will go into this. Okay. So this flow switch also you will be able to use only inside a flowchart. Inside a sequence, you will again not be able to drag and drop this flow switch. So for both of these parameters, because it is easier to view, right? It is easier to create this like in the form of flowchart. That is why we will be using this flow switch and flow decision in the flowchart. But if you have like very simple conditions, okay, if you have like very simple conditions, then you can use a if else condition in your sequence. I will just show you an if else as well. You have something called as an if. Okay, if is nothing but if some condition that you specify is true, then a set of activities will be executed. If something that you specify is false, then a set of activities will be executed. Very similar to the flow decision that we saw, right? We saw the flow decision where it only had two arrows. One was for true arrow, one was for false arrow. Very similar to that, we have the if condition here. For example, if I specify some condition here, for example, age, same condition I will specify. Gender is equal to male. Again here you can see, right, I have a variable called gender here, but when I come to the sequence 2 here, it is showing me an error because variables are only going to have the scope within this particular sequence. It is not going to have any outside functionality here. So again here also I'll have to create one more argument called gender. So inside sequence 2 I'll create an argument. Okay, if my gender is equal to male, let's say, then here I can use one more sequence here. Then do the activities for the male, whatever, if the person is a male, then do those activities. If the person is a female, then you can do these activities. So wherever there are small branching operations available, right, you can use the if condition here. Inside the sequence, you can easily go with the if condition, but this is very difficult to not very difficult to understand, but when seeing or when someone is like going through the code, it becomes quite difficult to understand. But in the form of arrow, it is much easier to understand. So it depends on what you feel comfortable with. Some of them may feel that no, I don't want an arrows. I am happy with this type of formatting. So you can go with the if condition here. But here you have the arrows type of format. So that is going to be a basic difference between your sequence and flowchart. Again here there are no arrows. Everything is going to be linear. One by one it is going to execute. But here it is based on the arrows, based on the condition that we specify. It is going to like create an automation. Then the last thing is going to be, your state machine. I just create one state machine here. So state machine we are not going to use like in any of our concepts here. It is just there. Okay, it is one of the components that is available for creating states. But we will be pretty much working in sequence and flowchart because that is what we will be using in real life. There is one important use of state machine. That is why I am showing you this state machine. We will have that in our last class because we have something called as a framework that is created that is being done using the state machine. I just give an overview of state machine and then we'll move on. So now I have the state machine. Okay, it is very similar to a flowchart. Again, I had a flowchart. It had a start button here. Here also it has a start icon here. So from here I will have to add all my conditions and all my activities here. So inside the state machine, it can have only two activities. It can either be if I just search for state. You can see at the end of the screen, right? It has state machine, which is what we just dragged and dropped just now. Then we have state and then we have final. So it can have any number of states. Okay, this is one state. For example, I can give this a name as open the website. Then I can have one more state. It should be like, let me say, like read data, something. I'm just giving it in random. Then let's say I have one more state here. It is going to be like log out from website or close the website. Okay, so I have three states here. Now you will see that it shows an error. Okay, because this is not having a end state. Okay, so as you see here, it should have at least one transition, because what I've created is I've created a list of states. So a state machine can have any number of states. Okay, this is a state, this is also a state, this is also a state, but it should have a end state, or what we call as a final state. So final state should be where all your transitions should be ending. All your arrow marks, it should come and end at a final state. From the final state, you will not be able to draw any arrow marks, because that is where your automation is going to end. So my close state, I'll create a final state for that. So just drag and drop a final state here. You can see, right, now all my errors are gone, because from here I cannot draw any transition. This is going to be my last state. The difference is going to be the name of the component. This was a state, the open website and read data, but my closed website is going to be a final state. From the final state, there is going to be no more automation possible. Whatever I write inside my final state, the automation will end with that. Okay. Now, for every state, I was talking about something, right? If I just click on this, it will have an entry, it will have an exit, and it will have a transition. So entry is nothing but once this state, for example, what and all you want to do when your automation starts. So from the start, it will go to open state. So inside open state, what and all you want to do. For example, you want to open the website. So there is a component called as open browser. I will just show you. I'm not going into the components, okay? I'm just showing you the functionality, how it will work. So I have a component called open browser here. So that it will ask me for the URL. It will ask me for the URL here. If I give the URL in my entry, it is going to open the browser here. So that is what. Exit, again, if you want something to be done while moving to the second state, you can add it here. Else you can just leave it blank. Okay. You have an entry. In the entry, what and all you want to do inside this particular state, you can create here. Exit, if you want to do something before moving to the next state. For example, you want to navigate to the second page before going to the read data. You can give here. You will have again a component for navigate to. Navigate to would mean you are going to a different page. So if you want that, for example, you will give the URL of the second page. So on your entry to the state, it will open the browser, and while exiting the state, it will go to the next page. Okay, and then you will have a transition. Transition is nothing but whatever I drew just from T1, it is going to read data. Okay, from open website, it is going to read data. Whatever I drew just now, that is your transition. Now when I come to read data, I will again have the same entry and exit. Okay, so in the entry, I can again give some activity here. For example, I want to read some data. I think it is get data. Yeah, I'll have the get text. So I'll just drag and drop the get text here. So it is going to get some text from that particular web page. And during the exit, if you want to do something, again, if you want to navigate to a different page, you can do that. If you don't want to do that, you can just leave blank. And you have one more transition here. It is going to go to the closed website. From here, it is going to go to the closed website. Since I drew an arrow mark between read data and closed website, I'm having a transition here between read data and closed website. Okay, and in the closed website, if you go, you will only be having an entry, because you are not going to transition out of the closed website. This is going to be the last state. So when I come to my last state, if I want to do something, for example, I want to close the browser here. I'll have the close tab here. So I will just use the close tab here, which means that my close tab will be completed. With that, my automation is complete. So if you want it in the form of states, you can use the state machine. From the read data, you can again go to the state machine also. That is also possible. That is going to be a new set of transitions. If I go to my read data, it will show that it has two transitions now, T2 and T3. So based on the conditions, again, you can give conditions here. Based on the condition, you can give the transitions. So in whichever way you want to do, you can go. But your final state should always be there. That is where your automation is going to end. For example, from the open website, you don't want to go to read data. You directly want to go to closed website. That is also again possible. Now, if you go inside open website, you will have two transitions here, T1 and T4, because you are having two states here, two arrows here. So this is it about the state machine. I will not save this because there are a lot of errors. Okay, so we were seeing about the three different types: sequences, flowcharts, and state machine. So we were talking about arguments, right? I'll show you how to use the arguments between the two files, and then we will end the session. So like I told you again, whenever automation is going to run, right, it is going to run this particular project. So whenever I run this project, it is going to start the main XAML or the main workflow here. I'll just click here. So let's say that I want a sequence here. I will create exactly what we did yesterday. Okay, so we created the same thing yesterday. I have a sequence here. First thing what I will do, I will ask the user for an input. Okay, I have first one is going to be my input. You can again copy paste. Okay, if you want to have all the settings and all, you can again copy paste. Right click, copy, go to this particular plus icon, right click again, paste. Control C, Control V will also work. Okay, that will also work here. So I am just copy pasting it here. So I am having two input dialogues. So I have my input dialog 1 here. It is going to be nothing but result. So here what I'm going to do is, yesterday I was clicking Control K, right? If I click on Control K, it is going to give here set variable, which means that I am creating a variable here. But now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to create an argument here. I'll tell you why I'm creating an argument here. I will hit Control M. If I hit Control M, it is going to create an argument here. You can see here, right? Control ARG. So it is going to create an argument here. I will just say number 1. If I want as an input argument, you will have to hit Control M. I will just give enter. So here again, I need an input argument. I will again give Control M and I'll give number 2. Now what I'll do is, I have number 1, I have number 2. Okay. Then what I'll do is, I will do my processing in a different file altogether. Okay. Inside my sequence 2, I will do my processing. For example, the addition work, right? I'll do inside sequence. I'm not doing inside the main file. I'm going to do it in sequence. So here I will have an assign block. So I will have two arguments here, my number 1 and number 2, because that is what I'm going to get as an input, right? Whatever I'm going to get as an input, I will have it here. So I will give number 1 here. Then let me give it as a string itself. I will have number 2 here. It is going to be an input argument. Then I need one more argument for sending the result. For that I'll give it as sum. I have number 1, number 2 and sum. Sum it will be an output argument, because I'm going to send it back to my main file, correct? Since I'm going to from the main file, I'm going to send number 1 and number 2. That is why number 1 and number 2 are input arguments. Since I'm going to send the result back to the main file, that is why my number 2 is going to be my output. My sum is going to be my output. So let me assign the values here. So sum is equal to number 1. I will have to convert that into integer. So I'll go with C int of number 1 plus C int of number 2. Okay, so my sum is now, it is a string, that is why it is showing the error. I will change my sum also to an integer. Okay, so my output is now ready. So my output is going to be whatever value I'm giving, I'm going to convert both of them to integer and I'm just going to add that. That is now available in a different file. Okay, if you see my project, I have a main file here where I'm getting the input, but my logic for adding the number is present in sequence. I will just save this here. Now what I'll do is, I have to send this, both the number which I got, I have to send it to the sequence 2, right? For that, you have an activity called as invoke workflow. Okay. So all the activities are available here. It is just that you have to know which activity you have to use. That is where difficulty is going to be. If you know the names of any of this, you just have to know which one to use. You can again search here and you will get the name. For here now you have invoke workflow file. Now I have number 1 and number 2 here. I just have to tell which file I have to use. There are two ways of doing it. You can drag and drop the invoke workflow file from here, or what you can do is, I will delete this. See, your logic is present in sequence 2, right? You just have to drag and drop sequence 2 here. To drag and drop sequence 2, again, it is going to bring the invoke workflow activity only. You just have to drag and drop the file. Okay. And then when you see here, you have something called as import arguments. So you have sequence 2 here. I have 3 arguments here. Number 1, number 2 and sum. 2 are going to be my input, 1 is going to be my output. Same when I click on my input arguments, it will show me the 3 arguments here. Number 1, number 2 and sum. Number 1 and number 2 are going to be input, sum is going to be my output. Okay. So I will have to tell which is my argument here. Now I have one argument here, which is going to be my number 1. Let me change the names here so that it is easier for us to understand. I will mention this as number 1 from main. So when I change it here, it will get changed everywhere, okay. Here also it will again get changed here. It again got changed here. I will change this also to number 2 underscore main. I will need one more to get the output. I will give it as sum underscore main. When the user enters the value, that is going to get stored in number 1 in main. When the user enters second number, that is going to get stored in the number 2 underscore main. So I have to send this to the second file and click on import arguments. So my number 1 in this file, right? When I see number 1 and number 2 and sum, that are coming from the second file. Okay, second file's argument. So here I will mention pass the value of number 1 underscore main. Whatever I got from the user, you pass it to the second file. Here I will mention number 2 underscore main. Okay. Now I have passed two output variables. I have passed two input variables, right? These are going to be the input to the process. So after that, what it's going to do is it is going to like do the sum in the second process. It is going to call the second process. Second process is going to do all the activities what are there. It has an assign activity, and I need to get the output back correct. So this sum value has to be assigned in some variable here. So I don't have a variable or an argument for sum. I'll just hit Control K because I can create it, right? I will just hit Control K. I'll give it as sum. Click on OK. When I see in the variables, I'll automatically have an int32 variable because my output is going to be in the form of integer, right? Here I have sum in the form of an integer. So I don't need to create anything. You just hit Control K. It is automatically going to create the variables for you. So my arguments are now ready. It has two arguments. Whatever I had in this file, I'm passing it as an input. Whatever I have it in that file, I'll be getting it as an output. Now let me try printing the sum here. I'll use a message box. Since it is an integer, I'll have to again use toString here. Maybe what I'll do is to show you that it is going to the second file, I'll write to a message box. I'll write a message box here. I will mention that inside second file, I'll mention start. Let me just copy that and place that again. So inside second file, I'll mention end so that we'll know that it is starting and stop. The process is starting in the second file and it's going to end. Save this also. And now I'll run this main file. So what this is going to do, it is going to get the input number 1, going to get the input number 2. Then it is going to go to the second sequence. It is going to show me a message box first, then it is going to do the sum, then it is going to show me a message box again, then it will again come back here and it will show me one more message box here with the details. Let me just try running this now. I will do a run file. Okay, I've got my first input box now. I'll enter 10. Okay, I've got my second input box. I'll enter 20. I've got my next message box here. It says inside second file start. Okay. I've got my next message box inside second file end. I've got my result also. It says 30. Okay. I'll click on OK. So you see the flow, how it has happened, right? It will start with the main file, it will do all the operations, and whenever you're invoking a workflow, it will go to the second workflow, it will do all these operations there, and it will come back here. You just have to pass the argument here. You have to pass the input, and you have to assign the output back. You will get the data here. So you can have any number of workflows here. Why we are using multiple sequence and why we are using multiple flowcharts is because so that our code is a bit more organized, right? So that, for example, one flowchart will be only for logging into a file, and one flowchart will only be for reading the data. If, for example, your login page has failed or you have made some mistake, then you can go directly to this flowchart and make a mistake here, make a change here, so that wherever you have called the login workflow file, it will automatically get reflected everywhere. So one place, if you make a change, it will get reflected in all the files that you have. That is the major reason why we are going with this invoke workflow, so that your code is a bit more organized. It is easily changeable. Okay. So you have to be very careful on input and output arguments. Okay. Now, for example, if I make a mistake here, I will show you one more time. Here I have an argument here. In this sum, I am mentioning it as an out argument, right? For example, if I mention it as an in argument, let's see what happens. Mentioning it as an in argument, I'll save. In the main, I'll again import the arguments. Okay. Sum is again, this is again showing me as in direction here, right? We'll do a run file. I will enter 10. I'll enter 20. Which is inside second file start, inside second file end, and my output it shows as 0. Okay, it's showing the output as 0. The reason is because it has not got any output from the second file. I was giving it as an input argument, right? I gave this sum as an input argument. So it will not be sending any data back to my main file. So when I print the data here, I'm getting it as 0, which is the default value. So that operation has not happened. So whenever you want the output from a file, you will have to give it as an out argument. Whenever you want to send some input to the file, you will have to give it as an in argument. That is going to be a major difference here between the in argument and out argument. So these are some of the very basic concepts. For example, variables, arguments, why I am using variables, why I am using arguments. Okay, you may have a doubt that I could have done it using variables as well, right? So this number 1, number 2, and what I'll do is I'll convert to a variable. I have an option to convert to a variable. Number 1 also I'll convert to arguments. I will do convert to variable. Some also I'll convert to variable. So I don't have anything here in my arguments now. In my arguments it is nothing. My variables, it has all the three variables. Okay. There is no error in my file because be it a variable or be it an argument, since it is the same file, it will not show me any error. Now what happens? If I go to my main file and if I'm going to read the arguments, right? If I try to import the arguments, it will not show me anything because only arguments can be imported. Only for arguments you can send the data, but for variables you will not be able to send the data. That is why for all the input argument, for all the output argument, you will have to like create a argument in your second work. Only if you create arguments, they will be shown here. Only then you can pass the data. This is pretty much it about the first half of the session regarding variables, arguments, the various types of files. You are able to like understand it, right? Image automation, and then we'll start with Excel automation. So in image automation, like we saw the other day, we have something called as image recorder, very similar to what we have in the web desktop and Windows applications. There we had the web recorder, the basic recorder, and the desktop recorder. So here we are going to have the image recorder. So in the image recorder, if you see, you will have multiple actions available, very similar ones, very simple ones are going to be click image, then we have the type, then we have select text, and we'll also see a live example and how to automate that. So here everything is going to be image based. There is no concept of selectors here. In basic and web recorders, we were seeing about selectors, but here everything is going to be image based, and we are going to use image for all our identification of elements. So in the image recorder, we have click image, we have click text, we have select and copy, and we also have scrape relative. So we were seeing the other day about click image. So if you want to like click on anything on the screen, you can use the click image activity where we are going to indicate the image which we want to click. For example, if you want to click on submit button, we'll indicate that submit button is nothing but the image which we want to click. Or if you want to click on some text box, some other button, anything, it could be any click activity, right? So we do not have any, since we do not have any selectors here, we will have to indicate the image which we have to click. So click image is going to be that, and then we have click text. So when we indicate the element on the screen, or we indicate the entire window, what happens is it will use OCR to scan the entire window. Okay, it will scan the entire window and it will extract the piece of text which we give. For example, if we scan the entire window of our Windows application, we will have all the text available here. For example, we'll have the cache and text box, we'll have the cache out text box, we'll have the balance text box, we will have the transaction number, we'll have the account number, and we'll also have accept, submit, cancel. All these buttons are also going to be there. Whatever text is available on the screen, basically everything will be picked up. It can be anything. It can be the text on a button, it can be the text inside a text box. All the text is going to be picked up. So there, if you want to click on any of the text available, you can use the click text activity. So on a button, if you have accept, on a button if you have cancel, you can just indicate the text as accept, and wherever the word accept is available on the screen, the it will be clicked. Similarly, wherever the word cancel is available, it will be clicked there as well. So it entirely depends on which way we are going to, what image we are going to use. So you can use either the click text or you can use the click image. Both of them are going to work. So whichever works best, and will work even in case of changing of mission, changing of environment. Even if we do all those things, even if we change the size of the image, whatever works, we can use that. You can use click image or click text, whichever works for you, you can go with. Now for extracting some data from the Windows application, for example, if we have like transaction number colon and then the number, or we have account number colon the number. So for that, what we use is we use a select and copy. So it is going to be the easiest way of extracting some data from the window. So we can just indicate the element, and which if it is selectable text or if it is like a text box, then we will be able to extract the data from that. So wherever we have to extract some data from the image or from the window, which without any selectors, we can go with the select and copy option. And then we have the scrape relative, where we provide an anchor. Okay, we provide an anchor and tell that relative to the anchor, find some data for me. For example, in the window, if we have transaction number and then the number, so our anchor will be the transaction number, because the keyword transaction number is never going to change. Only the number next to that will automatically generated for each transaction. So we will give our anchor as transaction number, and we'll tell you search towards the right of my transaction number. In that case, what happens is it will automatically search towards the right of transaction number, and you're going to get the data for that. Similarly, for account number also, multiple users may have multiple account numbers. Again, we'll give the account number as our anchor, and then we will tell search towards the right of account number. So whatever number is there at the right of account number, that is again going to be fetched. So we'll move into the hands-on and we'll see how this is going to work. I have my Anyteller application here. We had used the same Anyteller application the other day also. So what this Anyteller will do is, if I double click on that, it is going to open this window for me, and then I can enter my details here, and I can click on either accept or I can click on cancel. If I click on accept, the number is going to change here. It is going to go to the next transaction. And if I click on cancel, nothing is going to happen here. Okay, accept, cancel, nothing is going to happen. If I click on exit, it will close this window and it will come back. So entirely depends on how we want to automate this application. So we will use image based. What we will do is we'll enter some data in the cache in the honest check, in the not honest check, and then we will click on accept. We'll extract this transaction number also so that we can see the scrape relative as well. So first, let us see about how to click on this Anyteller demo application here. Because for the attached window and attached browser or whatever we were using, what we were doing is we were clicking on the button there. Correct. We were clicking on the indicate on screen button, and when I clicked on indicate on screen, it is going to like highlight the window there. It is going to highlight the window there. We were doing that, but here since everything is going to be image based, there is no highlighting of window here. So what I'll do is I'll open my image recorder. Let me add a new sequence here, or no need. I'm just going to like use the recording, right? I can start the recording. I'll click on image recorder here. So first, to give you an overview about the image recorder. So in your basic and desktop recorder, you would have seen the start app here. Here you would have had the start app. So when I expand that, I'll have the start application and close application. Two options will be there. So that is not going to be happening here. Here we have click image, click text, type, select copy. We will not have anything called start app. So to start the application, you will have to click on some image. It can be anything. For example, you can click on Windows image, and then you can click on this Chrome image also. That is also going to open the Chrome browser. But what we are doing is we are directly launching it by using the indicate screen and open browser application. So you can use the click image, you can click on start menu, you can click on Chrome also. That is also going to work, should not be a problem. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to automate this Anyteller demo here. So we will click on this Anyteller application here. You can create a shortcut in the taskbar also. If I create a shortcut in the taskbar, then I can double click on the image here. It is automatically going to open. So wherever you want, if I want to add this to start menu, that also can be done. I have to click on start, image of start, and then image of this Anyteller application. So whichever works for you, you can use that. I am directly double clicking on this. Let us see that. So I'll click on click image. Again, I'll indicate the image here. I just have to draw over this. Okay, then I have to tell where I have to click. So basically we'll click in the center only, right? Whenever we move our mouse here, we'll click on the center. We'll not be clicking on corner or anything like that. So I'll click on center itself. I can change the options also. Top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. That also can be done. I'll click on center. I'll click on OK. I'll just click on save and exit so that I can see how it is going to launch the application. Okay, so I have a attached window here. Inside that, I'm having this particular click image here. Okay, I have the click image here. So if I go back, one thing you will have to notice is that when we selected the image, it was having white color background, but now it is going to have blue color background. Again, that is not going to work. We have to be very careful here. Whichever image you give, it should be in that color. So if I go one folder back, and if I come back here, then it is going to be in white color background. Only when I do a single click, it is going to be in blue color background. In that case, the image is actually different and it will not work, because whatever we selected was in, if you see here, whatever we selected was having the white color background. So we have to be very careful here. No manual intervention as such. So it should be white color background. Let us try running this and see if it is able to open the application. Okay, I'll change the, okay, first we'll try with button left. Button left is nothing but single click. Left button, you're pressing it once. Okay. Yeah, if you see now, what happened was it just did the single click. So by single click, it'll only select this. It will not launch the application. If I want to launch the application, I will have to do a double click. Correct. So where I can change that is nothing but I can change that in the mouse button here. Here it says mouse button dot button left. I want the left button to be done, and here I have the click type. In the click type, if you see, you will have click single, click double, click down, and click up. So we will use the click double since we have to do a double click. Now let us try running this. Yes, it has launched an application because it did a double click there. So this is going to be the difference between single click and double click. If I do a single click, it is only going to select the Anyteller application. But if I do a double click, only then it is going to get launched. Now what we'll do is we will try automating this. We will try doing all the click or everything we'll try. We'll go to our studio back. We'll go back to our studio and then we'll click on image recording again. So first thing what we have to do is we have to click on cache. We will have to enter some text here, right? So here also you will have to note, you cannot directly type into this image here, because if I click on click image, I have to first click and then only I have to type in the numbers here. If I do not click on this, then the cursor is somewhere else and it is not going to enter the text here. I can show you an example. Let me click on withdrawal and let me come back deposit. Let me click on some cancel or something. Now my cursor is not there. I'll close and open again. Okay. Here now my cursor is not available and I'm typing on my keyboard. Okay. I'm typing 1 2 3 4, but if you see it is not writing it here. Only when I click on this and then I type, it is actually entering the data here. So first thing what you have to do is you have to click on this and then you will have to use the type activity. So how do we do the click activity here? So for click, we have to do the click image, right? We have to do the click image here. For the click image, if you see, I cannot give this image here. I cannot give this particular image here because this is going to be very similar to the one below here. It will not know which one to select. So what we have to do is we have to find some uniqueness between these three checkboxes. So if you see this cache in, honest check, not honest check are going to be unique here. So what we can do is we can select this cache in and indicate this particular checkbox to be clicked. So that relative to this, it will actually click on that. We'll select click image and I will indicate this cache in here and then I can indicate a point here. I'll click on indicate a point and I will indicate this the text box. Now if you see it is clicking here. Let's do the same for now. We have to type the data here. Correct. Once we have clicked here, we have to type the data. So for that, you can use the type activity here and you can select this particular checkbox now. That is going to work. And I can enter some data here. Let me enter some random data. I'll enter 1 2 3 4. I'll click on enter. That is now getting entered. So same thing I'll do for honest check and not honest check also. I will use the click image. I'll select this honest check and I'll indicate a point. I'll select this. It is going to click here. Okay. Then I have to do a type here. I'll select this honest check and I'll enter the data here. I'll again enter some random data. Okay, now you may have a doubt why I'm using click image. Why can't I use click text here? Because click text cannot click a relative position. It will click only on that particular text. If I give click text and give honest check, it will click on honest check. It will not click on this particular checkbox here. Not on this text box. It will only click on this particular text here. That is why we are going with click image. We are selecting the image and then giving a relative position. So that even if our image is here, it can click some pixels after that. That is going to work. So we'll do the same for not honest check also. Give select image. I'll give not honest check. I'll indicate a point on the screen, indicate it here. Okay, it is clicked here. Here also, then I'll give a type, click on type. I'll give type here. I'll enter some random data, 567, enter. So once this is done, I have to extract this particular transaction number here. I have to extract the transaction number here and I'll click on accept then. Once I extract the transaction number, I'll click on accept here. So for extracting the transaction number, if you see here, whenever I click on accept, this number is actually going to change. So I cannot give this image here because if I give this image, next time when it comes, this image will not be available because the data would have changed. It will be 260317. So that number will not work. So what I'll do is I will use the scrape relative here. I'll give the transaction number as my anchor and whatever is towards the left of that, I'll select that. I'll go to screen scraping. I'll give scrape relative and I will select transaction number is going to be my anchor here. First I have to select my anchor. Then I have to indicate a relative region to this image. So first I am indicating my anchor and then I am indicating the region where my actual data is available. Okay, I'm giving this particular position here. My window is going to come up. My screen scraping window is going to come up. We had seen in the initial classes, right, regarding the screen scraping window, full text, native and OCR. We can use any of that. Here, full text itself is working, so I'm going to go with the full text itself here. So my data is also correct, 260316. Here also it is 260316. So next time when there is a different number, that is also going to get extracted correctly. I'll click on finish here. Then next thing is I have to click on this accept button here. Okay, I have to click on this accept button. So for the accept button, there are two ways I can do. For one thing, I can go click image and I can click on I can draw a box around this accept. That is also going to work. Or since it is a direct text, I can click on a click text also. So just to show you how to do the click text, I will show you the click text, but both of them can work. It is not that only click text is working, only click image is working. Any of them can work. I'll go to click text. Okay, I'll indicate the entire box because that is where my button is available. Now if you see, all my text on that particular window is coming up here. All my text, it is starting the deposit transaction, account number, transaction number, all the text is actually coming up here. I have to click on accept. So what I'll do is I will search for this particular text. I'll search for accept. There is occurrence also. Okay, I can give the occurrence also. For example, if there are multiple accept buttons, one accept is at the top of the screen, one accept is below the screen, then which accept I want to click, which occurrence. one at the top will be occurrence number one at the end will be occurrence number 2. Whichever is coming second will be the occurrence number 2. So here I only have accept once, correct? I only have accept here. So I'll give the occurrence as 1. Then let me do a test click. Okay, I'll show you the test click here. I'll give test click. Actually, if you see, my mouse cursor automatically went there and clicked on accept here. The data got changed. Okay, so that is working fine. Let me click on finish. Recording is almost complete. I have to click on this exit here. That is going to be my last option. Again, I can do click text or I can do click image here. Let me do click text. Let me do click image itself. I'll do just to show you. I'll give click image and I'll select this exit here. I'll click on, I'll give set position is center. Last time I was giving indicate a pointing and indicating it after this. Now I'm going to do center here. I'll click on OK. It clicked on that and now it is vanished. So once all this is done, I'll click on save and exit. Okay, my recording has not been generated. Let me just check this once. Okay, let me quickly do the recording again. I think I missed some part. I did not save or something. We delete everything. I'll start with the new sequence or no need of new sequence. I'll just give the recording. I'll give image. Okay, I'll start with click image. Again, click image. Okay, I have to give type. I forgot that. I'll click escape. I'll give type. I'll select this. I'll type some random number. Give click image. I'll give this. I'll click indicate a point. I'll click on this. I'll give type. Again, to click image. I will give this. Then I'll give type again. Let me first see if this is getting generated. I'll click on save and exit. Yeah, it is generating now. I think I missed some saving part last time. I'll proceed with the other things also. My click image is done. Type 3 type into I did. I have to do my click text and other things also. Let me click on recording again. I'll go to image. I can do any recording, any number of recordings should not be a problem. So after I entered all the text here, I have to click on, I have to extract the transaction number and I have to click on accept. I have to click on the transaction number for, I have to extract the transaction number. For that I'll use the scrape relative. So first I have to indicate the anchor. My anchor is going to be transaction number. And then I have to indicate a region next to that. It's going to be this region, 731496. I'll indicate this region, 73414196. It is extracting correctly. I'll click on finish. Then I'll have to click on the accept button here. Let me do that. So that I was using the click text. I will use this entire screen. Let me try accept here. Let me do a text click. Okay, it is clicked fine. Let me click on finish. Okay, then let me click on click image. Let me give this exit here. So here it should not be in yellow. It should not be in this blue color here. Okay, because what happens is next time it is going to be in gray color. So I should be very careful about that. I'll give click image. Okay, let me extract that. Let me try with the blue color itself. I think it will not work. Yes, because it is in blue color, right? So let me try with the click text itself. That is going to work anyway. Click text. I will indicate this entire area. I'll click on exit. I'll give test click. It clicked on exit, I think. Let me do a test click again. Yeah, it worked fine. Let me give finish and go back to, okay, UI element is no longer valid. Should not be a problem. Let me give save and exit. Yeah, I got an error there because I closed the window. Try that once again. First, I'll extract this particular transaction number. I'll give screen scraping. I'll give scrape relative. I'll give transaction number. I'll indicate a region to this. I'll give this. That is working fine. I'll click on finish. Let me do click text. I'll give this entire screen. Let me give accept. to test click. Okay, that is working fine. Let me give finish. Okay, let me save and exit. Yeah, that has also come up now. So let us try if this is working fine. Then we'll go to the exit button also. So we will start with, we will see first thing what we are doing is we are clicking here. That is correct. 1, 2, 3, 4 we'll give. 1, 2, 3, 4 we have given here. 1, 2, 3, 4 we have given here. After that, we are trying to extract the find relative image that is being done. Get full text. So here we have a variable here. It is nothing but Windows form window. Whatever text is available, this 102.102.551, right? We need to get that output here. Let us do that. I have the output here. Let us print that output in a message box. Windows forms window. Let me copy that. Let me paste it here. Okay, that is also now done. So let us try automating this now. Let us see how it is going to run. I have this window open. Let me go and do a test run. Yeah, I click there. It has entered the number there. It is entered on a stick. It is entered not on a stick. It is clicked on accept also. Yeah, I've got the message box also. Yeah, I got the message box 102.552. Yeah, last one was 102.552. That has also worked fine now. We click on OK. Yeah, it is ending the process here. Okay, we missed the double click part, right? We did not do the double click. Let us quickly do that as well. Initially, to open this particular window, we have to do a double click here. I think we did not record that. Just do a recording, image recording, click image. We have to extract this image. Done, center, okay. Save and exit. Here we have to give double click. Yeah, this has to be at the top, right? We have to do this as the first action. So what I'll do is I will just select this and I'll move to the top of the screen. I will just minimize this. I can do the collapse. It is getting minimized. I have to drag it to the top. Here I have to drag it. Let me do that. I can just drag it just like that. Yeah, let me do it here. Now let me expand this. First I have to do a double click here on this. I am using the click double. Then I am then I'm doing the click on that particular text box, entering the text. Same thing I'm doing for all the 3 text boxes. I am trying to extract the data here and then I'm clicking on accept here. Now let us try this end-to-end automation. I will close the window. I will do let me just check for that particular image also if it is fine. Okay, it is having the blue color. Let me just go back and come back inside. I'll go to softwares, go back to my studio. Let me do a run file, doing the run file here. Yeah, it double clicked on that. It clicked here, clicked on enter the on a stick, enter the not on a stick, it clicked on accept. And I got the message box also. Okay, my message box is coming as 928558. Okay, what last time it was 928558, now it has changed now. Since I clicked on accept, that is also done. So this is going to be an end-to-end automation on image automation. Here, if you see, there is no concept of selectors. Everywhere it is going to be image only. If I go here, click image, I will not have an option to load any selectors or edit any selector. Nothing is going to do. If I want to like change the image, I can again click on grab from screen. Then again, I can indicate the image again. Like we used to do with the edit selector, we can do the same thing here. We can click on the grab from screen again, and then we are going to do, we can grab the image again. For example, you feel that something is not working fine. You want to change the image again, you can again do that very well. This is about image automation. Everything is going to be based on images. Like I said, if this one is changing a bit, right, I can show you that. Now it is having the gray color. Let us try running this. Let's see if it is working or not. It may work, it may not work. It depends on how they have captured it. Now I am having a gray color window here. It will actually look for an image with a white color background because the image which we gave was having white color background. It actually clicked it. So that is not bad because the amount which we gave is actually very good. Click on accept also. I've got the number also. That is also working fine. Okay. Sometimes it may work, sometimes it may not work because everything is going to be image automation. Depends on the amount of tolerance and what we have given. Sometimes what happens is even a slight change in the image, it is not going to work. And one more thing, this window has to be at the foreground. If I minimize this window, again, it will not work. Okay, only if the window is at the foreground, it is going to work. If I don't have this window open, then it means that it will not be able to find the window, right? For if I close this, Let me do a run file again. These are some of the prerequisite which we have. We have to like have the window open. That image would be visible. If only if the window is open, only then we will be able to like do all the operations here. So it told me the error, right, that it is not able to find this particular selector, find the image. It is not able to find. So these are going to be some of the prerequisites for image based automation. We will have to have the window open. The image should have an exact match. So you will have to like keep all this in mind while doing this image automation. So you are clear about image automation now. Let's move into Excel automation. If you have no other questions. Nothing much here. You just have to indicate the image and then click on the image, and then you'll have to do that. So where we will be using image automation, we will use image automation only for Windows automation, web automation, desktop automation. Nothing is going to work. Only then we will be using the Windows automation, because same thing what we want, we should be able to do using Windows automation as well, right? Or desktop recorder. So only for desktop recorder is not going to work. We are going to use our image based recorder. This is going to be our last option. About Citrix recording. The next one is going to be for queues. Okay, once we complete Citrix recording, we were pretty much closing the studio part of the session. So we had seen about web recording, we had seen about Windows recording, we had seen Excel, PDF, email, all these automations we have completed. We are yet to see Citrix recording. That is the only one recording which is missing. Image recording also we had seen the other day. So we'll start with Citrix recording then, and then we will move into queues and see how to extract data from queues and work with queues. What is queues and all those things. So here, what we are going to do is we are going to go to native Citrix recorder. Then we are going to see the prerequisites for using native Citrix recorder, and then we will see about activities like click and type. Then we'll see about click image. We'll see about select text, and we'll also see a live example. So coming to Citrix recorder, this Citrix recorder is nothing but we are going to access the applications and resources which are available on a different machine. So you must have used the remote desktop connection, or you must have used the Citrix or any other software like VMware, or let's say we do have Amazon workspaces. All these particular machines, what we do is we connect to a different machine, and then we try to automate the application which are present in the different machine here. Now why we are doing that, you will have that question, because in many organizations what happens is they don't want us to bring the data outside their environment. So if I'm taking a remote desktop to a different server, okay, that server will have all the applications and all the data regarding the company. For example, if I take a healthcare organization, it will have all the patients' data, all the claims processing details, everything will be present in that particular server. So the organization will not want the robot to work on their server. They will want the robot to work on a different server and connect to the server only for doing the operations. So that is what we use the Citrix recorder for. So Citrix recorder is nothing but it's going to be a combination of both of them, combination of your web Windows recorder and your image recorder. So you will find activities like click and type, which are coming from your web and Windows recorder, and you will also find activities like click image, which is coming from your image recorder. So it is going to be a combination of both of these recorders. So in the Citrix recorder, there are going to be some prerequisites. So after clicking on, after connecting to your machine, if you want to get the selectors, okay, if you want to get the selectors, we will have to use Citrix. We will have to use some prerequisites itself. I'll show you what to do in that case also. So moving on to the activities, these are pretty much the activities which we are going to see. So this is going to cover pretty much all the activities which we will use in Citrix applications. So first thing what we'll use is we will use click image. So click image is nothing but, like we saw, it is used for clicking on mostly anything, any image. It can be for starting of an application, to close an application. We can use the click image activity here. So we do not have the start app and close app here. Okay. So what we will do is we will be using this click image to click on the particular application which we want to launch, and then we will launch the application. So your click image is going to almost replace your your start app and close app activities here. Then we will be having activities like click. Click is nothing but to perform any click operations on any of the websites, or any of the Windows applications, any of the checkboxes, any of the buttons. If you want to click anything, you can use the click activity here. Here again, since we will have the connector installed, we will be able to get the selectors on the different machine. It is not going to be image recording. It is going to be based on selectors only. Same thing happens for type also. For type also, we have to indicate the element on which we have to, and we will be able to get the data which we have. We will be able to extract the data. We will be able to type the data. All these things we will be able to do since we have the connector installed on the machines. And next thing, to get the output. So for input, we are going to use the type activity, and we are going to use the click activity. For clicking on the button, for entering all the text, we are going to use these two activities. Now for getting the output, we have to copy the text from the machine, right? So for that, what we'll use a select and copy option. So it is going to be the easiest method, and it is going to work for almost all the method for all the controls like text boxes. If you want to extract something from a label, from any messages, all these things we will be able to do using the select and copy option. So for getting any output or reading any status, like the other day we were seeing the registration application, right? We wanted to get the number, we wanted to copy the registration number from the application. So for that, we can use the select and copy option to get the data from the application. And last, if there is no selector available for any of the control, for example, that day we had seen the transaction number, we do not have a proper selector for that. So for that, what we'll do is we'll use the scrape relative option, where we'll define an anchor. The anchor should have a selector, and basis the anchor, we will be selecting the data which we want to extract. Okay, so it is going to have an anchor and another component, two components it is going to have. So anchor is going to find the element using the selector, and the other data whichever we want to extract, which is near to the anchor, for example towards the right or towards the bottom, whichever we want to extract, we can use the scrape relative functionality. Okay, so these are pretty much going to be what we are going to do using the UiPath Citrix recorder. We'll have click image, we'll have click and type, select and copy, and scrape relative. Okay, so we will see one by one, and we'll see an example of how to do this activity. Let me open my studio for you. Yes, I have my studio installed here. Let me open yesterday's process. I think it is blank process. Yes, let me open that. In the meantime, what I'll do is I'll connect to a VM which I have. Okay, I have created an Amazon workspace for me, and I'm going to use that to log into the remote machine that I'm having. Let me just log into that. Let me just connect to start the mission, and then let me connect to the mission. Okay, the mission has now started. Let me connect. I am using the remote desktop connection to connect to this particular mission. Okay, I've connected to my remote mission now. So as you can see, I have a remote machine here available here. So this is going to be a different machine altogether, right? So my robot and my UiPath Studio are all installed on my local machine here, and I'm connecting to a remote machine on a different server. I've just used the remote desktop connection to connect to this particular machine. Just extract it a bit. And as you can see, I'm having my desktop here. I can open the browser as well. I can do all my operations. It is just a different machine altogether. I have just connected to that machine. Okay. I can access Google also here. Let me just try that. So everything is working fine here. Now before doing Citrix automation, there are two things which you will have to do. Okay, two prerequisites which you will have to do proper connection between your local machine and your remote machine. First thing is going to be, in your local machine you will have to install the Citrix extension. Okay, if you go to home, and if you go to settings, sorry, go to tools, you will find that there is a extension for Windows Remote Desktop, for VMware Horizon, and for Citrix. So based on which application you are trying, which application you are going to use for doing the remote desktop operation, you will have to install any of this particular extension. Since I'm connecting using the Windows Remote Desktop, this is going to be remote desktop connection, nothing but Windows Remote Desktop. I can use the Windows Remote Desktop extension here. I just have to double click on this. It is automatically going to install the extension for me. I have to close all my session and open. Since I have already installed it, I'm not going to do that. So for connecting to the remote machine, after on your local machine, for doing Citrix automation, you will have to install this Windows Remote Desktop operation. Okay. If you're connecting using VMware to the remote machine, or if you're connecting using Citrix for the remote machine, you will have to install that particular operation here. Here I am using Windows Remote Desktop, so I am using the remote desktop connection. Okay. And next thing what you will have to install is on your remote machine. Okay, I have done one installation on my local machine. Next, I have to do it on my remote machine. If I go to my remote machine, I have to install one software here. How to access that software? You can go to your UiPath orchestrator, nothing but cloud.uipath.com. Let me go to the UiPath orchestrator. It is called as the remote runtime environment. We'll have to install that software. So when I come to my orchestrator, right, I'm doing it on my remote machine, not on my local machine. I'm doing it on my remote machine. If you come here, you will have a link to to head over to the resource center. You will have to go to the resource center, and here, if you scroll down, you are going to have remote runtime installer. Okay, so here you will have to install your remote runtime environment. So you can, which version you have to install, you can find it in the studio itself. Here, as you can see, mine is going to be 2020.10.4. Correct, 2020.10. So you have a version for 2020.10. By 20 we mean 2020, so 2020.10. So you can install this particular version. If you're having the 2020.4 version, then you can install this 2020.4. So it depends on which version you are having. You just have to double click. You just have to click on this. It is going to download. It is going to download. Then you have to do a normal installation. Okay, you just have to do a normal installation here. You can click on next. Since I'm already having it, I'm getting a different window. When you're doing it for the first time, you will get a different window here. It'll just tell you all the where you want to install, what is the location, all those things it'll have, like any other normal software. You just have to install the software here. Once this is done, your studio and your Citrix are going to be ready for automation. Okay, now let me try doing some automation here. Okay, so on this remote machine, I have the same bank application. I have installed it inside the machine also. I'll click on this. I will enter some data here. I click on submit. Okay, it'll give me an error message. Let me enter some data. Same thing what I did the other day. I'll get a number here. So what I'll try to do is I'll have to open this application. Then I have to enter all the data, click on submit, extract the information, and then click on this X button also. That is what we are going to do now. So let us try doing that. Going back to my studio, let me create a new sequence. So inside Citrix, I'm having a new sequence. I'll go to recording and I'll click on native Citrix. Okay. So we had seen about the basic recording. We had seen about desktop recording, web recording, image recording. Now we are going to do the native Citrix recording. So as you can see, it's suitable for all desktop and application virtualized through the Citrix technology. So since we are using the same Citrix technology, we will going with native Citrix here. So we'll click on native Citrix. Our native Citrix recording is going to come up on the screen. What you will have to do is you will have to record your actions one by one. So here, like I said, there is in your Windows and web application, you will have the start app to launch the application, but here we are not going to have start app here. We are going to have the click and then the click image. On the image, you will be having all your image activities. If you click on image and if you click on mouse, you will have all your image activity. If you click on text, you will have all your text activity in that fashion. So first thing what I have to do is I have to double click on this. Correct. If I do a single click, it is only going to get selected. Only if I do a double click, my application will be launched. That is going to be my first step. So I'll go to my image. I'll go to my mouse and I'll do double click. I have an option here, double click here. So inside my image, inside my mouse, I have an option for double click. Let me click on double click. And then I have to indicate the application which I want to launch or image which I want to launch. So I'll give this particular image here. Okay, I'll give this image. And then I have to indicate where I have to click. So I will say indicate and I'll indicate the center of this image so that it clicks on the center of your image. I'll click OK. So as you can see, it is clicking now, and it has launched this particular application here, customer registration application here. Now let me do the customer name, city, phone number, and email. Let me type that one by one. So here last time we had used the click and then type. So here we can directly use the type here since we will be getting the selectors. If I click on type, and if I select it here, I'll be getting the selectors of all the application and all the controls here. If your remote runtime is not installed, right? If your remote runtime is not installed, you will not be getting any selector. It will be like this. Your entire screen will be selected. Any element inside the window will not be selected. Okay, any element inside the window will not be selected. So here your entire screen will be selected. So if your entire screen is getting selected, it means that your prerequisites, some of the software are missing. So I'll click on customer. I'll enter the data here. I'll give a name. Next thing I have to click on city, type. I'll click city. Again type phone number. Then last is going to be my email. I'll give type here. Okay. Then I'll click on submit. So for clicking, I'll use the click activity here. I just have to do the click activity, indicate the button which I want to click. Click on submit. Yes, my registration successful message I'm getting, and I'm also getting the number here. Now what I have to do is I have to copy these two text, right? I have to copy this registration successful message, and I also have to copy this 490872. This number also I have to copy. So for that, what I'll do, if I go to my text, I have copy text, I have select and copy here. So I'll just use the copy text here so that I'm able to get the data from the text. I'll do copy text and I'll indicate this particular message here. Okay, that is done. Same thing I'll do for the number also, text and then copy text, click on this, that is also done. So once all my activity is done, I have to close this application. Okay, I have to close this application. For that, what I can do is I can click on this X mark. So here also the X mark selector I will be able to get. So I'll directly use click and then I'll indicate this X mark here. So that is going to click on this X button for me. Okay, it says that it is not getting the proper anchor for this. Let me just skip this. I'll tell no. It is clicking there and it is able to extract the data also. Okay, so this will finish my recording. Let me save and exit here. Okay, so first thing what we are doing, we are double clicking on this application and we are doing all our operations there, and then we are entering all the data here. Okay, all our activities are normal type into activities and it has got me all the data. So let me try printing both the data. I'll have the data stored in variables by default. For getText, I'm having this particular variable here. For this getText also, I'll have the variable here. So let me just write line, or I'll do message box so that we can see the data here. This is done. Let me try to do a test run now. It is doing the double click, then it is entering all the data, clicking on submit. It has closed the application. I'm getting the message box also. Let me show you the message box. I'm getting registration successful message box. Then I'm getting the number also, 943327. Okay, I'll click on OK. That'll end my automation here. Okay, so this is how your remote desktop automation is going to work, or your Citrix automation is going to work, where we are going to do the automation on a different machine. So why we are doing the Citrix automation? For example, you have only one studio, but you have multiple machines. Okay, you have only one studio or one license to open the studio and robot, but you have multiple machines and you have to automate multiple applications. Then what you can do is you can use this remote automation, in which case your robot is going to run on one machine only, but you can connect to any number of remote machines and you can do the automation on any number of machines. So this is pretty much about the remote desktop automation. It is going to be a combination of your web recording and your image recording here. Everything is going to be if you have installed this installers, you will be getting the selectors for all of them. Only for the starting of the application, you will have to use the click image activity here. So same thing can be done for Chrome also. If you click on Chrome, you can double click on Chrome using the start image, and then in the browser you can enter all your text. Everything using selectors you will be able to do. You can just stop the instance. Yes. So this is it about Citrix automation, where we had seen about the automation types, and we had seen about the extensions to be installed, and also we had seen about all the activities here. So if you come to your recorders, we have completed the basic desktop, web, image, and native Citrix. We are not going to use computer vision activities in our tutorial here, because it is going to be for AI vision, something with AI and vision technology, and we will not be using that in our regular use cases. We'll only be using either of these 5 recorders only. And we have also seen email, Excel, and PDF automation as well as part of our syllabus here. Now what we'll do, we'll see a very important topic. It is going to be called as queues. Okay, so we'll see a very important topic. It is called as queues. So before going to queues, I'll show you the orchestrator and we'll start working with the orchestrator now. So I'll go to cloud.uipath.com. So if I go to my orchestrator now, I'm having my default tenant. This is going to be my orchestrator. If I just click on this orchestrator, default tenant, it is going to go to this orchestrator window, and we are going to see about orchestrator now. Okay, it is giving me an error for users. Let me, okay, UiPath testing robot. So if I come to my orchestrator, I come to my default, I have something called as queues. Okay, this is what we are going to cover in today's session. We are going to cover about queues here, and then tomorrow what we'll do, we'll do the entire walkthrough of this orchestrator one by one. We'll see about all the details of all the components available on the orchestrator, how to create a robot, how to connect your robot, everything we'll see. Okay, so before moving to orchestrator, what we'll do is we'll have to create a robot. Okay, we'll have to create a robot and we'll have to connect your studio, whatever studio you have, right? You have a studio here. We will have to connect your studio to the orchestrator. So if you see here, it says orchestrator not connected. So first thing what you will have to do is you will have to connect your studio and your studio and your orchestrator. That is going to be your first step. So if you go to your Windows, right, you will have something called as UI assistant. Okay, in your taskbar, you will be having that. Let me open that. If you go to your taskbar, you will have something like a lock symbol. It will be something like a lock symbol. It will be called as UI assistant. It will be in this format. Okay, it will be in this format. You will have something called as UI assistant. So if you see here, it will ask you to sign into the application. It says that you are not connected. Okay, so this is what we are going to be using as a robot. So whatever we are designing will be inside the studio. Once we publish the process, it will move to the orchestrator. The work of studio is complete there. After that, there is no work of studio. For running the process, everything will be using the UI assistant only. So you will have something like this simple here in your task manager. You can use this in your task bar, and you can use this, and you can connect your machine and your orchestrator. So if you see here, do not sign in. It says that you are in offline mode. If you go to your preferences, and if you go to your preferences button here, you will get a new window. You will get this window here. Here you have options to like change the color. If you want to change the theme, that is also possible. Whatever you want, you can do. You can change the language also. And here you have something called as orchestrator settings. If you go to your orchestrator settings, it will by default have service URL. It will have a service URL also populated. It will be with sign in button. So this is what we are going to connect here. Here we have to connect our assistant with our orchestrator. Only then your studio is also going to get connected to the orchestrator. Only then you can access the queues. You can access all the data available on the orchestrator. Right now, how it is working is it is not having any connection with the orchestrator. Whatever you do here, it is only going to be done in this particular machine. You cannot connect to the studio via orchestrator. So we'll go back to orchestrator. So what I'll do is I'll delete this robot. We'll create it again. I have a robot already created. So once I come to my orchestrator, first thing what I have to do is I have to click on this tenant option. Okay, I have to click on this tenant option. Tenant is nothing but the overall orchestrator as such. Okay, overall orchestrator as such, where they will be having all the robot details, user details, roles, everything will be available in the tenant level. And then we have folders here. Folder is nothing but a subdivision of the tenant. Okay, and this user one will have access only to user one folder. User two will have access only to user two folder. In that manner, these folders are working. If user one is creating a robot, it will only be available inside user one folder. If user two is creating a robot, it is only available inside the user two folder. That manner it is going to work. So what we'll do is we'll go to this tenant, and here we have an option called mission. Okay, we have an option called mission. So we have to add our mission in the orchestrator. We have to add our local mission on which our robot is running to this orchestrator. So how will you do that? You will have to click on this plus icon here, and there are three options. I will just click on this standard mission here. Okay, I'll talk about these options in the coming classes. So I'll just click on the standard mission, and then I have to give a name for the mission. Okay, I have to give a name for the mission. So how to find the name of the mission? If I come to my command prompt on my local mission, I have to open command prompt. Okay, on my local mission, I have to open command prompt, and I have to give host name here. I have to type the command host name without spaces. If I type the command host name without spaces and click on enter, it is going to give me the name of the my mission. Okay, it is nothing but it is the unique ID to refer to my mission. So I have to copy this and I have to paste it here. This is nothing but the name of my mission. Okay, whatever data I copied from a command prompt, I'm pasting it here. It is nothing but the name of the mission. Another way to find the name of the mission is going to be, you can go to your file explorer, click on this PC, right click on properties. Here also you will have your machine name here. Here also you are going to have your computer name. So you can copy the data from here also. This is also going to work. If you copy the data from your computer name, that is also going to work. Okay, either way, both are going to be the same. You have to copy your machine name. You have to enter it here. You can give a name also for the machine. I'll give laptop. And how many robots you want to create on the machine. If you want like one unattended robot or one testing robot, you can enter the number here. I'll just say I want one unattended robot here. I'll give one. Let me click on provision. If I click on provision, my machine is now created. Okay. Only thing to note is that the name should be an exact match of whatever you get here in host name. You have to copy this and you have to paste it. You should not give any random name here. It should be an exact match of the machine name here and the random name and the name here. So once I've got my machine name created in the under the machines tab, what I have to do is I have to click on this copy machine key to keyboard. I have to click on this copy machine key to keyboard. I'll click on this and then I'll come back to my assistant. Okay, so here instead of connection type, you will have to select machine key. Since we are using the machine key method to activate, you will have to click on machine key here. You will have to give the orchestrator URL and you will have to give the machine key. I'll first paste the machine key, whatever I copied from this server here. I'm going to from the orchestrator, I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it here. Then I have to paste the URL here. So okay, so URL you have to copy it from your browser till the orchestrator. Okay, till the orchestrator you have to copy the URL. I'll copy this here. So from start till orchestrator slash, that is what you will be copying for the URL. And I'll paste it here. And then I'll click on connect. So it says connected unlicensed, but it is connected now. Let me go to my robot here. Sorry, studio here. It says robot error. Okay, it says robot error because I have not created my robot yet. I have only created my machine now. Now, how to create my robot? So once this is done, the connection is already established now between my orchestrator and between my machine. Connection is already established, but it's showing as unlicensed because I have not created a robot for this particular mission. To execute the process, I need a robot. I have not created a robot for that. What you have to do is you have to come to this folder. Okay, in tenant you will be creating the machine. In the folder you will be creating the robot. So once you have come to your default folder, go to robot. You can create your robot on any folder. Okay, you can create it on your specific folder also. You can create it on the default folder also. I'll go to plus and I'll create a standard robot. Here I have to select which machine I want to create the robot on. So by default, whatever machines I have added, it is automatically going to show up here. I'll select this. I will have to give a name for this robot. So I'll give it the name as laptop robot. You can give any name. It is not that you can only give laptop robot. You can give any name. So I'll give my local robot something, some description I'm going to give. And then there is going to be this type. Okay. So I'm going to select RPA Developer Pro here because I'm having the RPA Developer Pro license. I'm going to select RPA Developer Pro here. So to execute the process from the studio, you will need RPA Developer or RPA Developer. You will need RPA Developer or RPA Developer Pro license. To execute the automation from the orchestrator, you will be needing the unattended or non-production license. Okay. I'm going to use the RPA Developer Pro, and then later we'll change it to the unattended mode. I'll have to give my username here. So how to find my username here? That is going to be your next question. So on your command prompt again, you should type who am I. Okay, you have to type who am I. You hit that, you will be getting your username here. Okay, you will be getting your username here. You can copy that and you will have to paste it here. Click on create. So my robot is now connected. My machine is also connected. Let me go to my orchestrator settings and check. Now if you see, it has converted to connected and licensed because my robot has been successfully created and I've assigned RPA Developer Pro license also. So it is showing me as connected license. Let me come back to my studio. So we click on refresh here. Yeah, now if you see, it is showing me as default here. Since it is connected, it is having the green color dot also. Since I am connected to the default folder, my robot is available in the default folder. It is showing that I am connected to the default folder. If I'm created the robot in some other folder, that folder name will be available here. Okay, coming back to here, I will just refresh the status. Let me see if I'm able to get it. Yes, as you can see, my type is RPA Developer Pro. It is in green color because it is licensed, and then it is in a green color tick mark as well. So everything, pretty much everything we have sorted. So this is how you will connect your machine and your orchestrator. First thing what you will have to do is you have to go to your tenant, go to your machines, create a machine here. Okay, this name should be an exact match of your host name command in command prompt. Then you will come to any of the folders. I created it in the default folder. You go to robots. You will add a robot here. Here you will have to select the machine which you created, and then you will have to give the username as well. Username you will give it using the who am I command. Okay, whatever you get it from the username, you can copy that and you can paste it here. This is how you will connect your robot and your orchestrator. So my assistant now, it will show that it is in green color. It says connected and robot is connected to orchestrator. That is now done. So I come to my studio. Here also it says that it is connected to the orchestrator URL. Now we'll see about queues. Okay, what are queues, how to add the queue, everything we'll see for using the queues. This is going to be one topic which we'll cover today for queues. Okay, moving to queues now, we'll see queues one by one. So first thing on our agenda is going to be what is queues and connecting UiPath Studio to orchestrator. We have just now completed that. We'll see about queue activities and we'll also see a live example on how to do the processing using the queues. So what are queues? Okay, so queues are nothing but it is going to contain a list of items to be processed by robot. So a simple example would be your billing counter. So in billing counter, there are multiple people standing in the queue and there are only one person can do the billing at once, while all others have to wait in the queue and wait for their turn by the processing. So similarly here also, the person doing the billing will be a robot and all the people waiting in the queue are going to be your queue item. Okay. So robot can anytime do only one processing. So robot will be able to pick up one item from the queue and it is able to do the transactions. But if you have multiple items or there are multiple items being created, you will have to do this. You will have to process them using the robot. So what we do is we will keep them inside a robot, or we'll keep them inside a queue so that the robot can pick them up one by one as and when it is complete and the robot can do the processing. That is what we do using the UiPath queues here. So the queues can contain any number of items. It is not that it can contain only one item or it can contain only two items. It can contain any number of items. It can have 100 items. For example, there are 100 rows in the queue to be processed. In that case, you can have 100 items in the queue. The robot will do the operation one by one. It is going to pick up the items one by one and it is going to do the process. Okay. Next thing is going to be the queue can store any data. Okay, it can be invoice information, it can be like the customer name, it can be details of the user, it can be any project related data. Whatever be it, the queue can store any data and it can be retrieved from the queue as well. It is nothing but a carrier of data, and for workload management we are going to use the queues here. So what the robot can do is the robot can download these items from the queue one by one and it can do the processing. So all the details which we give in the queue item, the robot will use these items and it is going to enter these details in a SAP application or in a website or send a mail, anything. Whatever we want, we can do using the queue item. Depends on the process that we create. If you're creating a process for fetching some data from a website, and for that the input is coming, for example, the product name, which mobile phone model you want to extract. If your mobile phone model is going to be your input, then what you can do is you can give that mobile phone model as the input to the queue, so that the robot will pick up the data from the queue and it will do the processing and it will update the output also. Okay, so this is what we mean by the queue. So UiPath queues, so what we are going to see is we are going to see connecting to UiPath Studio to orchestrator. Then we'll see about creating queues in orchestrator, and then we'll see the difference between get queue item and get transaction item. Okay, so connecting the UiPath Studio to orchestrator we have covered just now. We have covered the creation of the machine there, and then we created a robot and we connected both of them and we assigned a license also to them, so that our robot became connected and licensed, and we were able to do all the we are able to do all the operations on the queue. Next is going to be creating the queues in the orchestrator. I'll show you how to create the queues in the orchestrator so that we can use the queues there. And the last thing is going to be the difference between get queue item and get transaction item. This is going to be a very important interview question where they will ask you the difference between get queue item and get transaction item. So get queue item is going to be nothing but it is going to be a read only feature where it is going to get all the items which are present in the queue, and it is you can see the details of each item in the queue. But get transaction item, it is going to fetch only one item from the queue. Okay, it is going to fetch only one item from the queue and it is going to process the transaction. So in the get queue item, we are not going to process the item, we are only going to see what is the data present in the queue, or we can delete the item. But or we no, we'll only be able to see what is present in the item, we will not be able to do anything to the queue item. But in get transaction item, what it will do is whenever we do a get transaction item, automatically the robot will start to process that particular transaction item. It is very similar to a bill, again a billing counter where there are multiple people standing in the queue and you want to know what are the items which each people have in their shopping cart or in their trolley, what item each person is having. You can just go and view, right? You no need for them to do the billing process, you can just go and view whatever products they are having in their trolley or in their hand. That is what we use the get queue item for. But if you want to do the actual billing for any of the person, then you have to go to the billing counter or you have to process that particular person's items. That is what we tell as get transaction item. So basic difference is going to be get queue item is only for reading the items in the queue, not for processing. But get transaction item is going to be for processing the items in the queue. This is going to be the major difference here. Now we'll see about the other activities which are available for the UiPath queue activities. So we have an activity called add queue item where we can add an item to the respective queue. So we have to give the queue name as the input, and whenever we add an item to the queue, it is going to get added to the queue. We can also add multiple items at once to the queue. So for that, we will be using the bulk add queue item, where we will be like, for example, in an Excel, you are having multiple rows, right? You are having multiple rows. You want to add all the rows to the queue one by one. If you want to do one by one, you can use the for each activity, and inside that you can use the add queue item. But you want to add the entire table at once, then you can use the bulk add queue item, where input will be a data table, and whatever is the data, it is going to get added to the queue automatically. And then if you want to get the item from the queue or read the item from the queue, what is present in the queue, you will be using the get queue item, where we are going to read what is the data present in the queue, and we are just going to see what is the data. We are not going to process that particular data. Okay, this is very important. We are just only going to read, or we are going to see what is present inside the item. If you use get transaction item, then what we will have to do is we will have to download the item from the queue, and we will be processing that transaction or processing that particular queue item. Okay, that is going to be a major difference between get queue item and get transaction item. Get queue item is only for reading the contents of the queue, but get transaction item is for actual processing of the item from the queue. And last thing is, once you have completed the process, if you want to set the transaction item status, okay, you want to, let's say your processing is complete and you want to set the status as a success, or in some error you have occurred, so you want to set the transaction item status to error. So this can be done using the set transaction item status. Using this, you can change it either to successful, or you can change it to in progress, or you can do any such activities here. You can move it to error, you can move it to retry. All these things can be done using the set transaction item property. So these are pretty much the activities which we are going to see using the queues here. So let's go to our orchestrator. So in your orchestrator, so only your machines are going to be available in the tenant level. Okay, I'll go back outside the orchestrator itself. I'll just hit cloud.uipath.com. I'll come here. I'll go to my orchestrator. So if I go to my orchestrator, I'll be having the tenant and I'll also be having the folders here. Okay, I will be having the tenant here. I'll be having the folders here. So only your machines you will be creating in the tenant. If you go to your tenant, only inside the tenant you will be having the machines box. But if you go to your folder, you will not be having the machines box here. So only your tenants are going to be in the only your machines are going to be in the tenant, while all your other things like robot, queues, everything you're going to create inside the folder. So let me go to my queues here. And here, to create a new queue, you will have to click on this plus icon here. If you click on the plus icon, you can create a new queue here. I'll click on new queue. It'll ask me for the name of the queue. Okay, I'll give a name for the queue. I'll give it as process queue 2. Since I already have a process queue, I'll give it as process queue 2. I'll give demo queue, some description I have to give. And next thing is going to be unique reference. So do you want a unique reference for every item that you have in the queue? Simple example would be an invoice number. Okay, so if you have the invoice number as a unique reference, then what happens is every item will have a unique name or unique ID to identify the items in the queue. You will have a unique ID, invoice number. So if a unique number is you can have only one item with the unique reference. For example, you are having an invoice number INB001. You cannot add another item with the reference INB001. Okay, only one item with the particular name. But if you give unique reference as no, then you can add any items with any name. Simple example, if your name, there can be one Jitin, there can be two Jitins, correct? There can be any number of Jitins. So any number of person with the same name as me. So I can, if I'm going to add the name as my unique reference, then I will set the unique reference to no, because multiple people with the same name can occur. That is what we use by unique reference. By default, we can set it to no itself. No need to change anything. I will not change it to yes. And next thing is going to be auto retry. So once the robot picks up a item from the queue, the robot will automatically process the transaction. And at the end of the transaction, if the transaction is failed, then it will automatically retry the transaction. It will automatically start from the first and do all the activities one by one from the first. That is what we call by the auto retry. So we can set the auto retry to yes or no. If you want to do a retry or you want to do all the activities again in case of error, you can set the auto retry to yes. If you don't want to do the activities again in case of error, you can select the auto retry as no. And maximum number of retries. How many times you want to retry the particular transaction? So first time you're getting an error and you want to retry only once, or you want to retry again, you can give it as 1 here. If you want to retry multiple times, 2 times or 3 times, you can mention the number of retries here. So I'm just mentioning it here as 1, so that in case my application is having a failure, the robot will automatically retry the application again. Let me click on add. So my queue is now automatically created. So if you see my process, this one I already had. So my process queue 2, I am having 0 in progress, 0 remaining, 0 average time, 0 successful, 0 app exception. Okay, everything I'm having here. Everything I'm having as 000 only. Now I have to add the items in the queue. Okay, add the items in the queue. So how to add the items in the queue? So we will be adding the items in the queue using the studio only. If I go to view transactions, I can see all the items in the queue. Here, since I'm not having any items, I cannot see anything. Here in this queue, I'm having 1 remaining. So if I go to my view transactions, I can see all the items here. 2 of them were successful, 1 has got failed, and 1 is in new state here. So next time the robot is going to process this particular transaction. Okay, this is how it is going to work. Now, how to add an item to the queue? Let us see that. Let us see the activity one by one. I think I already had a sequence. Just check queues. Yes. Okay, I'm having a sequence here. So what I'll do is, in my activities, if you search for Q, okay, if you search for QUEUEQ, you will get all the activities with regards to Q. Okay, with regards to Q, you will get all the activities. It can be add Q item, it can be add transaction item, it can be bulk add Q items, it is going to be delete Q item, get Q item, get transaction item. All these things we will be able to do. So first thing what we'll do, we'll see the add Q item, to add an item to the queue. So here, what I have to mention is, I have to mention the queue name where I want to add the data. Okay, let me go to my properties here. In the properties, I'm having the queue name. This is going to be my mandatory property in which queue I want to add the data. I'll go to my process queue2. I'll give the name as process queue. Okay, I'll give it as process queue2. Let me try running this. Okay, I'm not giving any other properties, I'm only giving the queue name here. I'll tell about all these properties in detail. So I'll just show you how the item is going to. Okay, I've clicked on private, I'll disable that. I'll just show you how the item is going to be added to the queue. So if I go to the run file, so my it is complete now. Let me go to my orchestrator. Let me do a refresh. Actually it takes some time for the numbers to get updated here. Okay, but if you go to your view transactions, you can see an item there. Okay, you can see an item here, a new item in the status new. Now what is the status of all these items? Okay, you will have multiple status here. I'll tell them one by one. First thing is going to be we are going to have a status as new. Whenever I add an item to the queue, the status is going to be new here. Okay, this is going to be the first status. And when the robot picks it up for doing the processing, the status is going to move to in progress. Okay, first it will be new. Then when the robot picks it up for processing using the get transaction item, if I get this item into the studio and do the processing, it is going to move into in progress. Once it is moved into in progress, at the end of the transaction, it is either successful or it is failed. Okay, if all the activities are completed correctly, then I can do you set the status to successful. But if my some there is some error in the processing and some selector is not available, or there is some issue, in that case what I can do is I can change the status to failed. Okay, I can change the status to failed. So if I change the status to failed, then what happens is, since I've given auto retry, it will automatically move into in progress, or it will automatically run the transaction again. And then once the retry is also complete, it will go to retried. Okay, it will go to retried once the retry is also complete. So since I mentioned as 3 retries, it will retry the same transaction 3 times, and once that is also complete, it will move to retried. Okay, and abandoned is when a robot has picked up the item for processing. The robot has picked up the item for processing, then automatically the item will move into in progress. Correct. When the robot has picked up the item for processing, it will move to in progress. But even after 24 hours, the robot has not updated the status to success or failure. So robot is like doing it for 24 hours, or robot has not updated the status back, then automatically it will move to abandoned. The timeline is going to be 24 hours. If robot has picked up an in progress robot has picked up a transaction and it has moved into in progress, then even after 24 hours, if there is no progress, or if there is no details, it has not moved into failed, it has not moved into successful, then it will move into abandoned. Okay, it'll move into abandoned. And if I manually delete this from the queue, if I manually like select this and click on remove here, it is going to get deleted. If I want to do that, then automatically the status is going to move into deleted. Okay, if I click on remove and delete it, then the status is going to be deleted. So these are the various states available in the UiPath Studio. In the UiPath orchestrator, these are the various states of the process. Since I've just added the queue here, it is going to be in progress here. Okay, so this is how we will be adding the item to the queue. And there is one more thing called as add transaction item. Okay, add transaction item, what it will do is it is also going to do the same thing. It is also going to add the item to the queue. But when I add a transaction item, what happens is automatically the status is going to move into in progress. Okay, automatically the status is going to move into in progress. The status will automatically move into in progress here, and the robot will pick it up for processing. That is what we call as add transaction item. When I add the queue item, it is only going to be new, and it is going to be in the queue. But when I add a transaction item, it is going to be in progress, and the robot is actually going to start processing the transaction. That is what we call by add transaction item. So we'll see in detail about the add queue item. We had various properties also, right? First thing is going to be, we'll have to do the continue on error. If some error occurs, for example, the queue is not available, or in case of some error, we will use the continue on error property here. I'll not going to do that. Then deadline, by what time you want this transaction to be completed by the robot. So here it will be in new state here. It will be in new. By what date you want that to be completed. So I can give the date here. For example, I want it to be completed tomorrow. So I can give 11/02/2020. Okay. It means that by 11/02/2020, automatically this process has to be completed. This transaction has to be completed. Then I can give lot of information regarding this item also. That is possible using the item information. For example, I want to give some information like name, and I want to give the name of the person. I'll give Ramesh. I want to give the city. I'll give the city. And I want to give the phone number. It is basically like the input to the queue. Okay, regarding the item, all the input I'm going to give it in the item information. Okay, I'm giving 4 items here, 4 information here. So all my 4 information is available here. I'm just giving that. I'm clicking on OK. So when my data is added to the queue, it is going to have this 4 information also additionally. Okay, it is not an empty queue item. It is going to have additional information also. Then there is an option to postpone. For example, you want to like execute this after 2 days. You have to execute this after 2 days. You can give the postpone option. You can give the date here. You want to execute it after 12th of February. You can give the date here as 12th February. Then this will be executed only after 12th February in that manner. Then priority. In what manner you want to execute this queue item. So if you have the priority as normal, it will be in first come first serve method. Whichever item was added to the queue at first, it is going to execute that. But you also have the high priority and low priority. By high priority, what happens is it will be executed even if it is added at the last. It will be executed first. Okay, more like priority based scheduling, where all the high priority will be executed first, and then it will move into the normal and the low priority. Or if you want this item to be executed at the last, you can give it as low priority. Okay, it will be executed at the end only. So it depends on that. I'll give normal. Then I have to give the queue name. I'll give that same queue name what I had. I'll give process queue name, process queue 2. Okay, now I had mentioned about the unique reference, right? If I want a unique reference here, I can set the unique reference here. So I'm just going to give some number here, some random number. So if I give a unique reference here, then it is going to add the item in this particular queue with a unique ID. Then I have an orchestrator folder path. So I created my queue in the default folder. Okay, if it is a default folder, then there is no need of mentioning the path. But if created under some other folder, for example, shared or user one or user two, then you have to mention the orchestrator folder path here, or you have to mention the name of the folder under which folder you want. To leave it as blank, it will automatically take default. So let me try adding this item now. Once I go back to my orchestrator, let me try refreshing it here. It'll take some time, I think, for it to get refreshed. I'll go inside and go to view transactions. So as you can see, my new item has been added here. My reference is also mentioned here. If I click on the view details, I can view all the details which I gave. I gave the name, city, phone, and mail. All the 4 details which I gave, nothing but input. Everything is going to be stored in this particular item. So this is how we will be adding the item to the queue. So this is how we will be adding the item to the queue. So any doubt still here on adding the item to the queue? Okay, once this is done, what we will do is we will try to get the item from the queue. So we are adding an item, we'll have to get the item from the queue to process this particular item. So if I do a get queue item, I can do a get queue item, I can do get queue items. Then I'll have to mention same properties only. So here, which orchestrator folder path, what is the queue name, what is the duration from priority. So only if I want only high priority, I can give it as high, that manner. Or which items you want. Do you want it in only in progress, or you want to extract only the new ones? You can give the status as well. What I'll do is I'll give the queue name, nothing but process q2. Okay, that is going to be my queue name, and then my I have to give my, that's it, I just have to give the output is going to be my queue items. Yeah, I have my output here in queue items. I have to create a variable here to store all the queue items. So here I'm going to get queue items. You can see the plural thing here because it is going to give me all the items. So I'll just mention okay, I'll mention queue items. Okay, I'm creating a variable, giving it the name queue items here. So it is automatically going to be stored in the queue items variable. Since I'm having multiple items in the queue, I'm going to have multiple items stored here. So it is going to be a list. You see here, it is going to show you a I enumerable. Enumerable is nothing but a list. Okay, a list of queue items. That is what we'll be getting from the queue. So let me show you the number of items in the queue. I'll do a message box. Queue items dot count dot toString. Okay, I'm doing this. Let me try running this. So I am getting the items from the process queue2 with any priority and all the statuses. Okay. So I'm having 2 items here. Let me just check. Yeah, if you see my message box, it is showing 2 items, which means that it is going to get the 2 items here. So here now, if you see in my orchestrator, even though I have done the get queue item, my transactions are still going to be in new only. It will not move into in progress. Okay, because I'm using the get queue item activity here. If I'm using the get transaction item, then it will move into in progress. But since I'm using the get queue item, it is going to be in new only. Now same thing, let us try with the get transaction item. Let us see if it is changing the item or not, changing the status of the item or not. I'll use get transaction item. I'll remove this. I will have to create a variable here. I will, in the transaction item, I'll have to create a variable here. Here also I'll hit control K, I'll give queue item. So here I'm only going to have one item in the queue. Okay, here I'm only going to have one item in the queue. Okay, here I'm going to get only one item from the queue. Even though I'm having multiple, the get transaction item will only give me one item from the queue. What is the error? Okay, queue name I did not give. I have to give the queue name here. Same queue name I'll give. Process queue 2. So here if you see, you will not be able to give the priority or give the status or anything. Nothing you will be able to get. Whichever is at the top of the queue, you will get that. Okay, there is no priority or there is no status. Nothing we are able to give. Any item which is in the new state, you will be getting it here. Okay, I'm getting only one item, whichever is at the top of the queue. Let me click on run file. Okay, I missed the message box here. I don't want the message box. Anyway, got an error, but I think the queue item must have been got here because it showed an error. It showed an error only after that. Let me go to my orchestrator and see that. Go to my view transactions. As you can see, one of them is in new. The first one which was added is moved into in progress here because I have done the get transaction item. Since I did the get transaction item, my this particular item has moved into in progress here. Okay, since I did not do a my broad processing is complete, but since I did not do a set transaction status, since I did not update the status, the item is going to be still in progress state. Okay, this item is still going to be in progress state. So that is why we'll have to set the transaction at the end of the processing here. So difference between get queue item and get transaction item, get queue item, it will still be new, but if you use a get transaction item, it will start processing and it will be in progress mode. So let me add like many items to the queue. Let me add some more items. Okay, I'm using the add queue item information. Let me check the item information. Okay, I'm having some data here. I will use the run file. Let me do it multiple times so that I can add multiple items in the queue. Okay, I'm adding 2 times here. Let me see here. I'll click on refresh. So I'm having 2 more new items here. This in progress will not change because it is going to be in progress. I have to explicitly change it. And whatever is in progress, you will not be able to delete it also. Okay, you will not be able to delete it. After 24 hours, it will automatically change into abandoned. Once it is abandoned, you can delete it. But since we did not update the status of this particular item, it is going to be in progress only. Now, how do I set the status of the transaction? Okay, going back to Studio, what I'll do is I'll get a transaction item. My queue name is going to be process Q2. Then I have my transaction item to be stored here. So I have a variable called queue item. I'm storing my queue item here. So it is going to get the transaction item for me. So once I'm getting the transaction item, what I'll do is I'll try to print all the data in the transaction item. I had given many input, right? Like name, city, all that input. I'll try to write all the data so to see if I'm getting the correct input. Now, how will you extract the data which is present in the queue? In the queue, you are having like name, city, phone number, email. You are having that, right? So how do that is how we will do that is you will first give the variable which you have used to store the transaction item. So here I have used the queue item variable. Same variable you will be using it here also, and then do a dot, and then there is a method called specific content. Okay, there is a method called specific content. You will have to use this, and in your bracket you will have to give the name of the key which you have given. For example, I have given name. So if I give the value as, if I give the key as name, it is going to give me the value of name here. If I give it as city, it is going to give me the value of city. So the specific content is what you will have to remember. Queue item dot specific content of name dot to string. Okay, that is now done. I will write one more message box to get the email ID. Maybe same thing. I'll just copy paste. I'll give it as mail. That is also done. So after this, after doing the processing, so there can be any activity here. So in a real-time process, how it will be is you will get the transaction item, then you will do all the processing here. You will do all the processing here, and then at the end you will set the transaction status. So if I go to my queues, I had the set transaction status here. So I'll go to set transaction status, and for this particular queue item, correct, I got the queue item here. It is being stored in the queue item variable. For that queue item, I'll go to the set transaction status, my transaction item, right? That is going to be my input queue item. Then I have to set the status here. It can either be successful or it can be failed. Like I said, it can either be successful or it can be failed. If I give it a successful, then it will automatically change it to successful. But if I change it to failed, I will have to mention the error type and the reason for error. Error type can be two things. It can be business and application. So what is mean by business is, it is nothing but business would mean wherever we have some input file is not available, or business has failed to give us the input data, or they have failed to send the email to the bot, wherever it is because the business team has failed to do any operations, we will mention it as business. And wherever there are some applications issues, for example, you're not able to connect to the browser, you're not able to connect to the Google website, you're not able to connect to the Windows application, in that case what we give is we give it as application. So I will just mention this as successful now. So if you give the status as failed, then you will definitely have to give the error type and the reason for failure also. Okay, first I'll show you with successful. So once I come here, if I see here, okay, in progress, I cannot do anything, I'll just leave it like that. The new item, this one, it is going to pick it up. Okay, let me do a run here. Okay, so let me try running this now. Click run file. Yeah, as you can see, I am getting the output message box here. It is showing me as Ramesh. So which means that the bot has gone into the get transaction item. It has got the value for name from the transaction item and it's printing it here. Now if I go to my orchestrator, since it is currently processing the transaction item, correct? It is currently processing the transaction item. If I do a refresh here, you can see that it has moved into in progress. Since the bot is processing that particular transaction, it has moved into in progress. Let me click on OK here. I will be getting the next message box. It is going to be the email. Let me click on OK here. Now my transaction is now complete. Okay, it is going to set the transaction status as well, whatever I mentioned. Let me do a refresh. It has moved into successful. As you can see, it started a minute ago and ended few seconds ago. So based on what I gave, it has moved the since I set the transaction status successful, it has set that successful here. Same thing, let me try for error here. Okay, I will get the transaction status. I will print the message, two message boxes. I will set the transaction status to error, failed. I will mention the error type as application. I will say some random message I'll give. I'll say application did not load. Let me try running this now. I'm going to run the file. So now it is going to process this transaction one by one. Since this was added at the last, it is going to process this transaction. So if I see here, I'm getting the same data here, Ramesh. I'm getting the message for email as well. Let me try refreshing it. Yeah, it is moved into in progress. Let me click on OK. My bot processing is now complete. Let me come back to my UiPath orchestrator and let me refresh it. Yeah, since I mentioned in case of failure, I want to retry the transaction, it is going to do the retry here. Okay, so when it will do the retry is first it will do this new first, and then at the end it will do this particular transaction. That is how it is going to work. So I can show you that as well. I will set the other thing to successful. Okay, I'll set the other to successful. Let me try running this. Now it will process this one. Message box, I'm clicking on OK. If I do a refresh here, I can see which one is getting processed. Yeah, this one is now in progress. The retry will be tried at the last. Click on OK here. That is now done. So it will move to successful. Now that is moved to successful. Now this one will be processed. We'll try running the bot again. So queues are nothing but it is for holding the data in the row. It is for holding the data in the queues here. Okay. One by one, the data present in the queues will be processed by the robot. So this is also now done. Now if I click on here, I will refresh. This one is also moving to successful here. But one is still in retried, which means it has to be retried here. I mentioned the exception as application exception. So what happens if both the times it is failing? What happens if both the times I am failing it? We try that. Set transaction status. I'm setting it to failure here. So I mentioned that only once I can do the retry, right? Only once I can do the retry. So when I run the file again now, okay, there is no items to be processed. Okay, since I did not give the unique reference, it is not going to retry this. Since there are no more new items, it is not going to be available for processing any further. So I go to my robots. Sorry, I go to my queues and I check the properties here. Yeah, maximum number of retries is one, which means that only once it will try that. So if I go to my queues and click on view transactions, This one was executed once, and I got the application exception as well. So here, this is how all the activities are going to be happening here. One by one, it is going to pick up the item from this queue. Since I did not set the transaction status for this particular item, after 24 hours, automatically it is going to move into abandon. But since I set the status for all the other items, they have been moved into the respective status. Okay, so this is how the set transaction status is going to work. Based on your need, you can either move it to success or failure, and then based on the number of retries you have configured, it will automatically do a retry. Now, if I want to add multiple items to the queue, okay, how do I do that? That is going to be my next question. Let me do that next. So same file I'll use. Whatever files I had inside my test, I'm having my input file. So I am having this particular file here. Okay, so I am having three items here. So I want to add these three items into the queue. Now how will I do that? That is going to be my next question. So I can have any number of items. It can be multiple, like hundreds of items as well. I can use the hundreds of items. I can add them as 100 different items in the queue. Okay, all I have to do is I have to use the bulk add queue items. So before using the bulk add queue items, I have to read the data from the Excel, right, into a data table. So for that, I will be using the Excel application scope. So like we saw in Excel automation, for doing any operation with the Excel file, I will have to use the Excel application scope. I'll click on this folder icon, come to my documents, personal, training, test. I'll select this particular file here. Okay. So once I've opened the file using the Excel application scope, I will have to use the read range activity here. Read range, I'm going to use sheet 1 here, and I want the entire data to be selected, so I'm going to give it as empty here. So if I give empty, the entire data will be selected. And my output, I have to give a data table here. I will hit Control K, create a variable. I'll give it as Excel table. Okay, my table is also created. And then once my read range is done, I will have to go to my queues activities, and I have the bulk add queue items. Okay, I have the bulk add queue items. I'll use the bulk add queue items. Here, my input is going to be the data table which I want. I'll give that particular data table which I have, Excel table. Okay, then I have to give my queue name, which queue I want to add the data. Process Q2. This is my data table. This is also now done. Okay, let me try running this process now. I'll go to run file. I'm running this. So in bulk add data item, you will only give bulk add queue item. You will only give the data table and the queue name in which you want to add the data. These are the three things which are going to do. It is opening the Excel. Process is also now complete. It has added the data to the queue. Let me go to my orchestrator and check once. I go to my refresh. Yeah, I am having three new items here. Since I had three rows, I am having three new items here. If I go to my view details, as you can see, I have the customer, city, phone, email. These were the column names. Correct. These were the column names. All the data has come from the Ramesh Chennai, or from the column names. All the data has come here. Now I will be processing this one by one, and I will do some operation. I'll update the status here. So last time we had used that Excel and reading the data from Excel, and we had done the activity in that particular application, right? Now what we'll do is we'll read the data from the queue and we'll do the application. So I'll create a new sequence. So how in real time the project will be is there will be two processes. One process will be for adding the data to the queue. Okay, we call that as the dispatcher. The dispatcher process is going to read the input file and it's going to add the data to the queue. And then we will be having the performer process. It is going to be the second process. What the performer is going to do is it is going to read the data from the file from the queue one by one, and it is going to do the processing, and is going to update the status of that particular item. Okay, so this model, what we call it as the performer dispatcher model. Dispatcher is going to send the data to the queue, and performer is going to extract the data from the queue one by one, and it is going to do the processing. So I'll use the same application to enter the data here. I'll have the same application here, softwares, bank app. Let me do a recording very fast. If I come to my recording, I have my desktop recording. First thing is going to be I need to start my application, start app. I'll use the start app. I'll click on OK. I'll click on type. I'll select this. I'll enter some data. Same thing I'll do for city also. Just entering some random data. We'll change it to the data from the queue anyway. Click on type again. Give this the email ID. Then I'll click on submit. That is also done. Then I have to copy the text. I'll copy. Okay, I'll click on submit. I'll get the details here. Then I have to copy the text. Copy text. I will select first this one. One more thing I'll select copy text. I'll select this one. Once all my operations is done, I need to close that application. So how I'll do that? I will use the start app. I'll use close app. I'll indicate this application. Then once that is done, I'll click on save and exit. Now all my recording is being stored here. Okay, all my recording is being stored. What I have to do is, before doing the recording or before doing this entire desktop recording, I have to get the transaction item. Correct, I need to get the transaction item and fetch all the details from this transaction item. So get transaction item, I only have to give my queue name. Queue name is going to be process q2. My queue name is now correct. I have done that, and I have to store the transaction item in some variable. I'll create a variable here, control K. I'll give it as queue item. Okay, so I'm getting an item from the queue and I'm storing it in the queue item here. Now coming to the transaction or coming to the processing, once I get the item, I have to enter the details which I get from the item, right? If I come to my orchestrator and see the item, let me see on view details. So I have my customer, city, phone number, and email. This is what I want to enter in that application. Correct. I need to enter the customer, I need to enter the city, I need to enter the phone, I need to enter the email here. So here, how to do that? Instead of this 1, 2, 3, 4, what I'll give is, like I said, I have a method called specific content, right? I can use that. I'll give queue item. That is a variable I'm storing in the queue item here. Dot specific content of customer dot toString. Okay. So in this manner, whatever value is present in customer. So if I go to my queue and see whatever value is present in customer, the same value will be entered in that, will be fetched from the queue item, and it is going to be entered there. So same thing I'll do for all the 4. Here I have to save the city. Here I have to give the phone number. It is, let me see the exact value. It is going to be phone. Phone is also done. Then I have to give the email. I'll give it as email. It's also now done. Okay. Then I'll click on submit. And these two, I have to write it to the output. So if I come to my orchestrator data again, in the output data, it's saying as null, right? So I want to show that 2 details in the output. So how will I do that? I'll show you how to do that. So I'll get the text. I'm closing the application. Then at the end, I have to set the transaction. Okay, I have to set the transaction. So what I can do is, in the set transaction, I will give the output as. So in the set transaction, there is one condition which I have to add. Okay. So how do I understand if the data is successful or failure? Here, if I get the message as success, registration successful, then I will set the transaction status success. But here, if I get some enter city or enter name, something like that, then my transaction status is going to be failure. Okay. So here I'm going to add a condition here. For adding the condition, I will use the if condition here. Okay. I'm going to use the if condition here. So in the if condition, I'm going to say that this particular variable, okay, this Windows static form A, this variable, I'm adding a condition here. It is a bit of programming here. I'm adding a condition. If this variable dot trim is nothing but it is going to remove all the spaces, okay, all the space at the front and at the end. I'm going to trim the string here. So whatever space I'm having at the end, it is going to be removed. Only this registration successful message I'll have. So if this text dot trim is equal to registration successful, okay, registration successful, it means that my transaction is success. Correct. So I will send the status to successful. I have to mention my queue item here in my input transaction item. I'll mention it as queue item, and I have to also mention the output. So in the output, I'll mention the registration number. So I have that variable also there, right? Windows static A1. This variable, whatever data is there in this variable, it is coming from here. So whatever data is present there, it is going to be stored in registration number, and it is going to be returned to the output. Same way, if it is having some other text, for example, it is having enter data or enter city or something like that, then I'm going to set it to failure. Okay, I'll mention here as failed. I can give any type of failure here. I'll mention success or business or application, anything I can give, does not matter. I'll give business, and I have to give the reason. So whatever text was available here I will be having the text, right? Enter city or enter customer. That is going to be my reason here. So that text I can copy from here, this variable. I'll copy this and I will put it here in the reason. Okay, so what I have done, I'm getting the transaction item from the queue. Then I'm doing all the recording here. I have changed the variable to get the data from the transaction item using the specific content method. I'm entering customer here, city here, phone here, email here. clicking on submit button, extracting the data of both these text box, both these labels, and closing the application. And the end, what I have done is I'm using a condition here. I'm just checking if this particular text box trim would mean all removing all the spaces. So I'm having lots of space here, right? I'm removing that. I'm checking if it is equal to registration successful. If it is equal to registration successful, it means that my transaction status should be success. So I'm setting the transaction status to successful. Transaction item is going to be my queue item. So here, if it is failing, I'm going to set it to error. So I missed something here. What am I missing? Okay, I did not mention the transaction item. I'll give it as queue item. So the same queue item only. It is either going to execute this then part or else part based on the condition. So if my condition is success, then it is going to enter the then part, going to set the transaction status to successful. If my condition is failed, then it is going to go to the failed, and it is going to go to the business exception, and it is going to set the status as whatever message is available here. My sequence is now complete. Let me try running this now. So bot has started processing. It is entering the data, clicking on phone number, clicking on email, clicking on submit. So that is now complete. Now let me go to my orchestrator and see that. If I do a refresh here, this one has moved into successful. Let me see the data here, view details. So as you can see, all my data is entered here. Output is going to have the registration number 448966. Okay. Same thing let me do for the next one. Let me do a run file. So it is entering the next data. Submit. Data is also done. Process is now complete. Do a refresh here. This one is all successful. See the view details. It is going to have the number here. Okay. So this is how everything is going to happen. Okay. So one by one, it is going to process the data and it is going to do all the output here. So this is pretty much about the queues, right? So in queues, what we saw today was first we did was we went to the queues. We created a queue here. We had to give a name for the queue, and we had to give the auto retry option, and also if there is a unique reference. So once we created the queue, we opened the studio. We saw activities like adding the item to the queue. Then we saw activities like getting the item from the queue. All these activities we saw. So if I go to the queues tab here, so I am having items like add queue item to add the item into the queue, add transaction item. If I add a transaction item, automatically it will change into in progress. Okay. So even if I add a queue item, it is going to add to the end of the queue. Correct. If I add a queue item, it is going to be at the end of the queue. If I click on view transactions, if I am adding a new transaction, what happens is it is going to be at the top, but the robot is going to execute. It is going to add a new row here and is going to execute whichever was added earlier. But if I add a transaction item, it is automatically going to add this item to the queue and pick it up for processing. Whatever was there earlier will still wait in the queue. That is the difference between add queue item and add transaction item. Automatically, it is going to change into in progress. Then we saw about the getting the queue items. I can also delete the queue items also. This is also possible. So I just have to give the status, what status I want to delete. I can do that. I will not be able to delete in progress items. I will have to like do something else. And then I can get the queue item, get transaction item, all these things pretty much we have seen, setting the transaction status. So this is pretty much about the queues, how we will be working. So in any real life project, you will be having two processes. One will be for reading the input and sending the data to the queue, and another will be for getting the item one by one from the queue and doing the process. Model we call it as the performer dispatcher model. We will be using it in RE framework, in all the frameworks. This model is only being used.